Hey, Brad, should we go? Call to order the Scott County Board of Adjustment meeting. First thing on the agenda be roll call.
Commissioner Hussein,
Present.
Commissioner Pika,
Here.
Commissioner Robbins,
Here.
Commissioner Huber,
Here.
Commissioner Von Hoff,
Here.
Commissioner Henches, Commissioner Watson.
Here.
I'll do some introductions quickly here. To my far left is our planning manager, Brad Davis. Adjacent to him is our deputy clerk, Rachel Nosbosch. And in the audience, I see Marty Schmidt, a zoning administrator, Greg Wagner, our principal planner, Nathan Hall, associate planner, and our county commissioner, Tom Wolf's here. Okay, after that, we have August 14th, 2023 meeting minutes. Everybody's had a chance to review those minutes. Are there any additions or deletions to these minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Non in favor, nay. Minutes are approved. Okay, next thing on the agenda is part of the three variances we have. First variance is PL number 2023-070, request for variance from a required 66-foot frontage on a public maintained road. Green Tree Realty, applicant and John and Judy Schmidt, property owners in section 20 of Spring Lake Township. And Greg, you're going to present to the board?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So on the screen is the site location map of the subject 20-acre parcel, which, as you said, is located in section 20 of Spring Lake Township. For locational purposes, the property is located on the eastern end of Butterfly Lane, which is part of the Monarch Meadows development. And this is east of Langford Avenue, which is State Highway 13, and kind of to the northeast of the hamlet of Lydia. So the board may remember that back in September, this property was before the Planning Commission for preliminary and final plat request from John and Jody Shimmick. What they're proposing to do is take their 20-acre parcel, which has an existing riding arena on the north end. Their home is on the southern end of the property, and what they would like to do is subdivide that property into two parcels, potentially then sell the southern lot and build a new home on the northern lot. So this was the preliminary plat that was presented to the Planning Commission back in September. So you can see Lot 1 would be the home and the riding arena on the north part. Lot 2 would be the existing home with a 100-foot corridor going up to Butterfly Lane, which is the public township road. So the lots, as proposed, meet all standards of the ordinance, and the plat was recommended for approval to the board. The one issue that was identified in the review of the plat was with Lot 1 and where Butterfly Lane currently ends. So Scott County zoning regulations require all lots to have frontage on a publicly maintained road for a minimum of 66 feet. But going back to the aerial, the road or the cul-de-sac ends at the northwest corner of the Shimmick property. The Butterfly Lane Monarch Meadows development was created back in 1997, so this road has been there for some time. So here's where the cul-de-sac currently ends. So it does provide frontage to the Shimmick property as it exists today, and ends in a temporary cul-de-sac, but the new lot here would not have frontage on a publicly maintained road. It would only front on public right-of-way for the bulk of the 326 feet. The Shimmicks met with Spring Lake Township to discuss resolution to this issue. Generally, what we look for is extending cul-de-sacs to get that public road frontage. The county does not like to consider applications for frontage on public right-of-way. Our ordinance since 1971 has required that public road frontage, not public right-of-way. But in meeting with the township, the applicants and the town board really looked at the benefit of extending the road by 100 feet. The township responded by saying that they don't feel it would be necessary to extend the road 100 feet for one additional lot at this point. It would create additional road maintenance and other costs to the township for one additional lot. Additionally, the existing temporary cul-de-sac, which is on the Shimmick property and the neighboring property to the west, would also need to be extended. So when the township and the applicants looked at this, and what they presented to county staff is that they decided to request the variance, recognizing that in the future, the property to the east is over 50 acres, and there's additional developable land to the east. So the right-of-way for the road has been dedicated with the original plat back in 1997. So there's no question that the road will be extended someday, but they feel that road should be triggered by development to the east, and that as that development to the east would occur, that then the road would be extended, and the Shimmicks would participate and relocate their driveway in the location that's shown here. So they do have a plan for where that driveway would go in the future. Right now, what they're going to do is essentially use the existing driveway and kind of come off where it comes off to the riding arena. So they're requesting that. Staff doesn't like to set a precedent with the frontage only on right-of-way. However, there have been 2 or 3 instances where this has been found reasonable. We do feel here that knowing that the road will be extended someday, the right-of-way has been dedicated, and the property to the east is a large parcel that will probably be developed in the future, that the road would be extended. So staff is recommending approval of the request, and Spring Lake Township at their October 12th meeting also did recommend approval of the request. So I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Craig. Any questions from the board regarding this variance? If not, as the public hearing, anybody like to address the board? Please come up to the podium, sign in, and address the board. If anybody like to address this variance? If not, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, second, close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Not in favor? Okay, public hearing is closed. Now, what are your wishes on this variance, please?
Mr. Chair, based on the variance criteria listed in the staff report, I recommend approval of the requested variance from the required 66-foot lot frontage on a publicly maintained road.
Second.
I have a motion, second, approve the variance. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Not in favor, say nay. Variance has been approved. Okay, next thing on the agenda is another variance, PL number 2023-077, request for variance from the required 100-foot road right-of-way setback to 53 feet to expand an existing legal non-conforming structure by more than 50%, and a 1-foot variance from the requirement that the roof line of attached garage cannot extend above the roof line of the principal building. Thomas and Amanda Cruiser, applicant and property owners of section 18 of Spring Lake Township. And Marty, you going to present to the board?
Yeah, I'll do that, Mr. Chairman. Board members, on the screen, site location map for the property proposed for the variance. It's located in section 18, Spring Lake Township. It's zoned urban business reserve. The property is located along State Highway 282 here, Country Trail. On the west side of the property is County Road 79 or Baseline Avenue. The area outlined in red here encompasses about 88 acres. The applicants also own an additional 26-acre parcel here to the north. To give you a little bit better idea, this cul-de-sac, Dairy Lane, serves the Krieger Industrial Park. Help you understand that. And then this triangle here includes the county highway shop. The homestead where the home is located that the variance is proposed on is located down in the southwest corner of the property in this area near the intersection of 282 and Baseline Avenue. Jump now to an aerial photo Again, the subject property outlined in red. Homestead for the farmstead is located here. This is the Krieger Industrial Park located to the northeast. County Highway Shop is located a little bit further northeast, about 2/3 of a mile from the homestead itself. From the aerial photo, you can see that predominant land use besides the industrial properties is agricultural here. There's really no other residence within close proximity to the applicant's home. The home is actually the southernmost building on the farmstead. Here's a close-up of the home. The home is 53 feet back from the state highway right-of-way. Current required structure setback is 100 feet from the state highway right-of-way. Because this home was built decades ago prior to land use zoning in the county, it would be considered a legal non-conforming structure. County assessor records indicate that the home itself has a 1,220 square foot foundation and above-ground living area of 1,897 square feet. And existing legal non-conforming structures like this can be expanded, provided the expansion doesn't encroach anymore into the nonconformity, and they don't increase the size of the structure by more than 50%. In this case, the addition for the home, including mudroom, breezeway, and attached garage, are all going to the north, away from the nonconformity. However, they are about 76% of the total square footage of the existing home, so the variance is necessary in this case. The applicants feel that the variance is needed as well, as the house does not include an attached garage at this time. They have 4 small children, and having an attached garage for their vehicles is an important thing in Minnesota. Now I'm going to actually jump to a floor plan. This is a floor plan for the addition. The home is located, existing home here, mudroom, future expansion area, could be laundry room, who knows, here. A breezeway in this location, and then attached garage here. The garage is 36 by 50, it's 1,800 square feet. It is the maximum size attached garage the county ordinance would allow on a house of this size. So the garage is pretty significant. Here are building elevations for the addition, a garage in this area here, breezeway here, mudroom here. The applicant did try to match the roof lines of the garage. I think it's a 512 pitch with the roof lines of the existing home. However, due to the size of the garage, the roof line of the garage will extend about 1 foot above the roof line of the home. And that's the second variance requested here tonight, is for height of an attached garage exceeding the height of the principal building. In either case, both structures, the residential portion of the home and the attached garage portion of the home, will be well under the 35-foot principal structure height limit allowed in the Urban Business Reserve District. Both structures will be lower than other structures on the farmstead and structures on adjacent properties. County staff is recommending approval of the variances, and the township heard the request last Thursday night and also is recommending approval of the variance request. With that, I'll stand for any questions. The applicants are present too if you'd have any questions of them.
Thank you, Marty. Any questions from the board?
Sure. That garage, 1,800 square feet, is that, can you just talk a little bit about that of the applicants? I mean, automobiles, equipment, kinds of stuff like that. I may have been in the report, but.
Predominantly, they have four vehicles that they drive on a daily basis. So that's predominantly the reason for the size of the garage. If you wanted further explanation, I could have them come up and address that.
No, I guess that's okay. It just seemed like a large kind of thing, so that's fine. Thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, this is a public hearing. Anybody like to address the board regarding this variance? If not, do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Motion?
Second.
And a second, close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Not in favor? Public hearing is closed. Your wishes regarding this variance?
Mr. Chairman, based on the criteria for granting a variance, I recommend approval of the requested variance from the required 100-foot road right-of-way setback to 53 feet to expand an existing legal non-conforming structure by more than 50%. and a 1-foot variance from the requirement that the roof line of the attached garage cannot extend above the roof line of the principal building, noting that the township is approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the variance. All in favor, say aye.
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 None in favor, say nay. Variance is approved. Good luck. Last thing on the agenda for the Board of Adjustment is variance number PL 2023-079, request for variance from the maximum impervious lot coverage of 25% to 28.1%, and a variance from the required 10-foot side yard setback to 8.5 feet to create a house addition, expand, Inc., applicant and Gail Otsby, property owner in Section 9 of Spring Lake Township. Nathan, you're going to give a report to the staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, of course, you're aware we don't typically have 3 variances for you in one evening. This particular variance here on the south side of Spring Lake in Spring Lake Township would typically go before the Prior Lake Spring Lake Orley Annexation Board. However, both the township and the city agreed that rather than set up a separate public hearing, it would be allowed, the request would be allowed to come before this board. And so here on the south side of Spring Lake, the subject property includes a single-family home with an attached 2-car garage. There are also 2 sheds on the property located here and here. It is located on a shared gravel driveway that exits to Vergas Avenue. The property is about 10,000 square feet, but the area within the driveway easement, if that's subtracted and kind of a private roadway there that connects multiple properties, if that is subtracted from that 10,000, the total lot area above the ordinary high water level is 8,807 square feet. So quite a small property even for that area. What the applicant intends to do is to create an addition that would include an additional garage stall, and then they would also have a master bedroom addition above that. And the as part of that project, the outdoor sheds would be removed, and also the concrete parking area where the proposed garage would be going would also be removed. And so that would be reducing some of that impervious lot coverage. The legal nonconforming house, it's currently at 9.4 feet from the south property line. With the addition, the house would become 8.5 feet from the south property line, 0.9 of a foot closer, and the impervious lot coverage would be reduced from 31.3% to 28.1%. However, we're not looking at this as a legal nonconforming situation because that concrete parking area that would be partially removed was recently added in just the last few years. And so that's why the variance is considered an increase from 25% to 28.1% when the site alterations are complete. Now, the home was completed several decades ago, 1960s, I believe. This is prior to our zoning ordinance, prior to the current setback standards. So it is legal nonconforming. Many of the adjacent parcels that we see in this area, they are also legal nonconforming parcels, not meeting the required property line setbacks or impervious lot coverage in some circumstances, and so that is consistent with the neighboring properties. The city of Prior Lake has noted the city has no objections to the variance request, and that both the reduced side yard setbacks and the impervious lot coverage would meet the standards once annexed into the city. Spring Lake Township met this last week and they recommended approval of the request. Minnesota DNR has also reviewed this request and noted they support the creation of a rain garden that would be capable of treating the runoff from that additional impervious surface beyond 25%. The Scottsdale Water Conservation District, in collaboration with the Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District, also reviewed this proposal, and they noted that this would be subject to the Watershed District rules, and a stormwater management plan would be needed, and the creation of a rain garden could be part of that mitigation effort to mitigate that increase above 25%. And county staff is recommending approval of this requested variance based on the 8 criteria listed in the staff report and subject to the recommended condition. And I'll certainly stand by for any questions, Mr. Chair, and the applicant and property owner are also present if you have questions for them.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. Any questions from the board regarding this variance? Yes.
I have one question, please. In the drawing that we have, this proposed addition is part of the, from the existing structure that is there? Or this, go back to drawing.
Yeah.
On that. Yeah. So this one, the existing building is already there, and then you have the proposed addition. Proposed addition is part of the existing one, or is it a new addition?
Yep. So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hussain, so the proposed addition would be added on to the house in this area. There has been some addition in previous years on the second floor addition, but this would be the addition here. So the footprint, the expansion is really quite small.
So there's nothing presently at this proposed addition part?
Commissioner Hussain,
No structure is built in there.
correct, Commissioner Hussain. There's no structure there now. There is a concrete parking pad that was
So it's
installed
an
in the last few years.
empty
But there's
space that they would be using.
correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding this variance from the board? Again, this is a public hearing. Anybody like to address the board regarding this variance? No one rushing up, so do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
A motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All in favor, say nay. Public hearing is closed. Now, what are your wishes on this variance?
Mr. Chairman, based on the criteria for granting a variance, I recommend approval of the requested variance from the maximum impervious lot coverage of 25 to 28.1% and a variance from the required 10 feet side yard setback to 8.5 to create a house addition.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the variance. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None in favor, say nay. Variance has been approved. Brad, is there anything else we need? Do I have a motion to close the Board of Adjustment?
So moved.
A motion?
Second.
Second to close the Board of Adjustment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None in favor, say nay. Board of Adjustment is closed. Turn it over to planning. The gavel.
I call to order the Scott County Planning Advisory Commission meeting Monday, November 13th, 2022. Welcome. We'll start our meeting this evening with the roll call.
Commissioner Hussain,
Present.
Commissioner Pika,
Here.
Commissioner Robbins,
Here.
Commissioner Huber,
Here.
Commissioner Von Hoff,
Here.
Commissioner Henches,
Here.
Commissioner Watson.
Here.
Also, this evening, Brad Davis, our planning manager, is at the end of the podium here. Next to him is Rachel Nosbush, our deputy clerk to the board. In the audience, Marty Schmitz, our zoning administrator, is here. Greg Wagner, our senior planner, and Nathan Hall, our associate planner. And Tom Wolf, our county commissioner, is also in the audience as well. Our next item is the approval of October 9th, 2023 Planning Advisory Commission Board meeting. minutes. The commissioner has been sent copies of the minutes. They had an opportunity to review them. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes as printed? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of October 9th, 2023.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the minutes as written.
I have a motion by Commissioner Huber. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Robbins. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are
Abstain.
approved with one abstention. Commissioner Henches abstained. Next item is our consent agenda. And entertain a motion to open the consent agenda meeting. It is open at this time. All items on the consent agenda are considered by the Planning Commission to be routine, will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a Planning Commission board member or a member of the public so request, in which event the item will be moved from the consent agenda to be considered separately. We have one item this evening on the consent agenda. It's number 2023-075, a request to rezone 37.77 acres from Urban Expansion Reserve District, UER, to Transition Reserve Cluster District, TR-C. John and Mary Hendricks are the applicants and property owners in Section 23 of Town of Helena. Would anyone like to have that removed from the consent agenda? Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to close the public meeting for the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Henches, second by Commissioner Huber to close the public hearing. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the single item on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda as written.
I have a motion from Commissioner Huber. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Robbins. Any further discussion? All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The consent agenda has been approved. Our next item is our public hearing. I call to order the public hearing at this time. It's a number 2023-059, request to consider application for a comprehensive plan amendment to amend planned land use for 27 properties in Sand Creek Township. Sand Creek Township is the applicant in section 4, 8, 9, 17 of Sand Creek Township. And our planning manager, Brad Davis, will be making the staff report. Good evening, Mr. Davis.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. I am going to present an overview of this agenda item here tonight. I'll start with a description of the town board's request and then go over some of the details in the staff report. That included some background information on the request, talk about the review process that we undertook for this comp plan amendment that always requires a 60-day comment period. So we'll talk about the comments that we received from adjacent and affected jurisdictions. Then the staff analysis for this request that is in the staff report in some detail, but we'll hit the key points to the analysis. And that's when I will then invite the applicant to come up and make any comments before I ask you to open and conduct the public hearing. And then we'll be here throughout that public hearing to answer any questions that comes up. And I have a slide at the end that just outlines your optional recommendations tonight. That's included in your staff report. We'll talk about those and then we'll be looking for a recommendation. All right, so in your staff report and on screen is a location map that shows the area under consideration here. So the town board has recommended a comprehensive plan amendment to re-guide 27 parcels or properties in this corridor area that I'll probably refer to it generally as the corridor area. It's north of Jordan. You can see the city limits of Jordan, generally right at this location, north of the wastewater treatment plant. North of Jordan, between Highway 169 and the Minnesota River. Much of the corridor is along Valley View Drive and 173rd Street. As you can see in the air photo, there are some uses in the corridor today. Uses that you might be familiar with is the Scale Regional Training Facility with a burn tower an outdoor firing range, and then the indoor classroom space for that training facility. Across the street from that is the Scott County Juvenile Alternative Facility, or I'll sometimes refer to as JAF. And then next door to the JAF is the Metropolitan Mosquito Control District. There's also, as you can see on the photo, some agricultural uses occurring in the corridor area. Up in this location is the Valley View Assisted Living facility. And then some single-family residential homes are also located in this corridor area. So the Sand Creek Town Board has requested a comprehensive plan amendment to re-guide 27 properties that are shown here on this side of the map. Those properties today are shown in a candy stripe, kind of a candy cane striped color of red and white. That designates properties guided for urban business reserve. And what the proposal is to re-guide 17 of those 27 properties into this gray shaded designation, and that is the Rural Business Reserve designation. And most of those parcels front along Valley View Drive or 173rd. The town board's request also includes re-guiding 9 properties, generally in this area where I'm outlining with my cursor, from urban business reserve to transition area. And these are properties then that would be consistent with the guidance on the other side of 169, which is all transition area. And then finally, this parcel that you see here, this triangular piece owned by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, is being recommended to move from urban business reserve to our parks and open space category. So that's the request here before you. This is just an aerial photo of the corridor area that we included in your staff report. We turned on the floodplain layers just to represent the developable area of this corridor. So the entire corridor area that's outlined in that pink dashed line, the map cut it off a little bit up here, but it does include that property just to the north, is about 430 acres of land. And about 118 acres are what we consider developable, meaning they're out of the floodplain, they're out of the wetlands, they're out of the creek bed, and they would be suitable for some type of development. So about 118 acres. But this shows the Sand Creek running through the corridor area, the predominant natural feature. Then, of course, the Minnesota River and the Minnesota River Valley. Most of the land to the west is owned by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So a lot of open space. If you drove the corridor, you probably saw that open space and just the general setting and kind of the uses that are occurring out there today in the corridor. So the staff report talks about two properties in this corridor area, 2 of the larger properties that have not been developed, have come before the county, the township, with a development proposal. And when those proposals came in, we held some pre-application concept plan review meetings and invited the city of Jordan staff, also invited a lot of county staff that review different development proposals to comment on these different concept plans. And so this was one of those concept plans for one of the properties. This goes back to 2020, where JMH Land Development proposed a layout where they would subdivide their property into 5 lots and then look at constructing 20,000 to 30,000 square foot buildings and then have areas for outdoor storage around those buildings, and have all that development fronting along Valley View Drive. So that was one concept that eventually led to a comp plan amendment that went through the process, and I'll refer to as we go on. But that was one concept for developing land in the corridor. Then earlier this year, another landowner with development interests approached the county, the township, and the city with this concept. This is just north of the Jeff and the Metropolitan Mosquito Control District, on property that the developer would be interested in subdividing and creating 6 to 7 different lots served by a new township cul-de-sac road. That was one concept. There was another concept that angled the road in a slightly different direction. But slightly smaller lots in this concept, about 3 to 7 acres, but still same size buildings, same size outdoor storage areas. So currently, under the current guidance and zoning of Urban Business Reserve, these properties could not subdivide and develop any further. They're in Urban Business Reserve, which really holds land until it's annexed and developed with city sewer and water. So you cannot subdivide your property lower than 40 acres in that category. And your uses are fairly limited, with the expectation that they'll eventually get annexed and served by municipal services. So both of these concepts could not happen today under the current guidance and current zoning. So the decision on this request will have consequences. If the comp plan amendment is approved, property owners could then rezone their property to rural business reserve, subdivide their land into smaller lots, and create the rural business uses that are allowed in that zoning district. So the types of uses that both of the concepts talked about are listed here: the lighter manufacturing, processing, contractor yards, landscaping services and businesses, trucking and logistics, repair, restoration, general office space, and warehousing. We've heard here at the county that there is a demand for these types of businesses and uses. I've provided some information in the staff report of some of the market information that comes to us. So generally, not just for this specific area, but countywide, we know that there is interest for citing these types of uses. So when we reviewed these different concept plans, there's a recognition that if these concepts really evolved into true applications with plats and site plans and conditional use permits, there would be a lot of detail on that site development. There would need to be some wetland protections, buffers that we always require around any land development, preserving the floodplain, not allowing any buildings to be a foot of the ground level being a foot above the floodplain, proper stormwater management so that any runoff is collected on site before it moves off that property. On-site septic and well is reviewed through our environmental services department. And then local road improvements, that was brought up several times, is if development is going to occur, the future of Valley View Road would need to be considered and perhaps improved and paved. So those are real site development considerations that the developers are aware of, the township is aware of. If any action is taken on this and we actually proceed with the development proposal. All right, so I mentioned in the staff report, this is the fourth comp plan amendment that the county has processed since the 2040 plan was adopted in 2019. And I provide a brief description of the outcome of those previous 3 requests. All requests go through the same process where staff receives that application, sends it out to adjacent or affected jurisdictions and give them 60 days to review it. Once that review period is over, then we time this public hearing so we know what those comments are and then open it up for more public comment. And that's what we're at tonight with that Planning Commission public hearing and recommendation. Your recommendation goes to the county board, and the county board then will take your recommendation and consider it when they make preliminary action on the request. If the board does approve it, then it goes to the Metropolitan Council for review. That they'll review it and look at the impact it has on their system plans and regional plans, and comment on its conformance and compatibility on those regional system plans. Send that information back to the board, and then the board would take final action. And if it proceeds, the comp plan amendment would then go in effect, and any property owner then in this corridor area could then start the rezoning, platting, and permitting process. So this box here shows the notified jurisdictions for this particular request. We did receive comments from the City of Jordan. And I don't see them, oh yeah, no, I don't see them on there. They should be included on that box. So the City of Jordan commented, and we'll go through those comments. We got letters from the DNR and the DOT that basically gave us no comment. And then we did not get any response from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the Jordan School District, or the Scott Watershed Management Organization. So I'll spend some time going over the City of Jordan's comments. The City of Jordan is opposed to this request, and I'll just itemize some of the key points that were in their letter. The letters were included, the full letters were included in your staff report. The subject properties here, the corridor area, is located partially within the city's post-2040 growth boundary and in an area planned to be served by municipal sewer and water service. We have a map in your staff report, and I'll show it here in a few slides, of where those boundaries are in relation to the corridor area. The city prepared a site-specific sanitary sewer collection plan along Valley View Drive, which includes 2 new lift stations with a force main discharge to an existing gravity sewer interceptor to the southwest at the intersection of Valley View Drive and Syndicate Street. Again, that plan is included in your packet, and I'll have a slide showing that as well here. The city notified us that they listed this sanitary sewer extension within its capital improvement plan for installation pending annexation and agreement with developers in this corridor area. The city has invested, it looks like about $7 million in the Southwest Interceptor sewer pipe, and has planned capacity to serve the 118 acres of developable land in that corridor area. In consideration of the $7 million investment the city has made, the reallocation of the 118 acres, in other words, if they can't serve that 118 acres because of a comp plan change, that would require the city to find other means to be reimbursed for the proportional $100,000 downstream investment made by the city to serve the corridor area. The city's comment letter stated that the proposed developments in the corridor area are premature, as the location is an area where urban utilities may be extended. Any approval of development with permanent reliance on septic systems in the corridor area is inconsistent with the Metropolitan Council's 2040 Water Resources Policy Plan. The city's letter documents their response to the 2 development concepts that I shared with you earlier, and those development review team meetings, and also clarified some of the positions or letters that were provided during those meetings, as well as recent efforts to re-engage Sand Creek Township on orderly annexation agreement discussions. The city's letter itemizes where this proposed comp plan amendment is in conflict with several 2040 comprehensive plan goals. The letter states that nothing in the township's application identifies changes in conditions or identifies errors in the 2040 plan, except that perhaps the City of Jordan is more developed and the possibility for future annexation with urban utilities seems more likely now. Seems more likely in the future. The city's comments, the county, township, Metropolitan Council, and Minnesota Pollution Control Agency should be concerned about the long-term viability of wells and septic systems in the corridor area. The city is concerned that future well and/or septic failure, particularly for industrial land uses, is more likely given adjacency to Sand Creek and its surrounding hydric soils and floodplain. The proposed rural development in the corridor area served by on-site septic systems will significantly decrease the amount of developable land on each property, and as a result, the tax capacity for the county's tax base. The city estimates that the annual tax capacity lost due to septic tank sites and drain fields alone equates to $1.5 to $3 million annually in perpetuity. The city's comment letter stated approval of this land use change would incentivize such behavior for other similar areas. Rezoning this corridor area to accommodate rural development would be a dangerous precedent to be set if supported by county staff and subsequently approved by the Planning Commission, County Board, and the Metropolitan Council. And finally, the letter suggests that a meeting with the city, Sand Creek Township, and the county to understand timing and what it would take to extend urban services to the corridor area would make sense before taking action on the township's request. So just summarize some of the key points in that letter. In our staff analysis, we respond to some of these comments. We'll go over that. So some of the maps that I mentioned. So this is a map from the City of Jordan's 2040 Comprehensive Plan showing that post-2040 future land uses and that 2040 growth boundary. So the area in purple here is representing the 2040 growth boundary. And then the dashed black line work here represents the post-2040 growth boundary. And the corridor area, kind of the southern end of that corridor area is here, extending then all the way up to 173rd. And this is another map from the city showing their ultimate growth boundary. So again, the dashed red line here represents the 2040 growth boundary of the city. And then the yellow line here represents the ultimate growth boundary of the city. And so the corridor area, again, is located right in here. So partially within that 24th growth boundary, but all within that ultimate growth boundary. This is a map that the city provided, again, showing that site-specific sanitary sewer collection plan and where conceptually the gravity sewer lines would be located, the force main, some of the water mains, and the location of, approximate location of the lift stations to serve the corridor. All right, so as I mentioned, the area today is guided urban business reserve, and the purpose of that land use designation is reserved land for future commercial and/or industrial development with urban services. As I mentioned, this designation is generally guided for ag. You know, the intention is that the land remains in an agricultural use or low-density residential development until it's annexed into the city. So this corridor area has been guided for urban expansion for Jordan since 2001. This is just a snapshot of the corridor area in the county's 2020 comprehensive plan adopted back in 2001. The most of this corridor is shown for urban expansion. And then it isn't until you get north of 173rd that you start seeing that candy stripe red color again, and that was the area then for urban business reserve. Then the next decade, the next cycle of planning, the 2030 plan adopted in 2009, the corridor changed from this yellow to the candy stripe red, so it put the entire corridor in the commercial reserve category. And it's my understanding that the corridor was re-guided to more non-residential uses, given the fact that it's adjacent to a wastewater treatment plant, an outdoor shooting range, and other uses that felt incompatible to residential development. And so the designation changed to more of a commercial designation. Then in the last cycle, in the 2040 plan adopted in 2018, it remained guided in that commercial reserve. When you zoom out, this is a county-wide map. Of course, the county is the planning and zoning authority for all 10 townships, the entire unincorporated area. So when you zoom out, you see Sand Creek Township here. Most of Sand Creek Township is guided in the transition area, which is long-term, a service area for the wastewater treatment plant that the Metropolitan Council plans to site somewhere along the Minnesota River. So if you recall in the 2040 plan, we identified the kind of ultimate footprint of what Scott County could be served by that future wastewater treatment plant. Most of Sand Creek, and as you can see, a lot of the townships in the central portion of the county are in that transition area where the density is 4/40, so you can cluster your density. If you have 40 acres, you can create 4 lots, but you have to set aside, I think, 75% of the land as open space for further development. But when you get closer to the city of Jordan, you can see the yellow then. This is the urban expansion area. No clustering is allowed in the urban expansion area. Your density is 1/40. And also then the red, so the county identified commercial reserve outside several of our cities where either the city was projecting that type of land use out into the future, or the existing development out there just suggested that we would see more commercial type development. And as you can see, it's primarily along our large transportation corridors. So a lot of that designation is along 169, 282 and 13, and along I-35. This is a map that shows the areas under an orderly annexation agreement countywide. And I'll just zoom in here. When you look at the 169 corridor, many of the areas in this commercial reserve are also subject to an early annexation area. So you see that in the city of Belle Plaine. You see that with the city of Jordan and St. Lawrence Township has a large part of their commercial urban business reserve, area also subject to an early annexation area, and also see that between Shakopee and Jackson Township. The corridor that we're looking at here tonight is not subject to an early annexation agreement. All right, so the township's application cited 2 major road infrastructure projects that are underway and will really change and directly impact how properties in this corridor will be accessed both north and south. And those 2 projects, the first one is the Bluff Drive Overpass project, and the second one is the new interchange being planned for in the city of Jordan at 282, 169, and County Road 9. So this screen shows a couple of different diagrams of those improvements. This one here that I'm highlighting with the cursor is the Bluff Drive Overpass projects, and just for location, this is where the By the Yard is located, Herman's Landscaping, formerly Camping World. If you would know that stretch of 169. So plans call for an overpass in this location, and then some new road to connect 169 to this part of the Sand Creek Industrial Park. And on this side of 169, there is now a continuous backage road up to this location. So in the future, motorists will only be able to do right in if they're going, if they're north coming southbound, being able to right in to get into this part of the township. And if they want to then go north, they would circle back over the overpass, come down this way, and then take an acceleration lane north. So it really changes the pattern of people coming on and off 169 just north of this corridor. And that project is slated to begin construction in 2024. Also, as part of that project, the township has secured state funding to make a connection between 173rd and Jordan Avenue, and that's depicted on this side of the diagram with this yellow line. And with that project, direct access here where Jordan Avenue directly connects with 169 and where 173rd directly connects with 169, those connections will close as part of that project. And so that too really impacts how most people probably get to this corridor today by taking a right onto 173rd Street. That will change. And as I mentioned, the project down to the south of this corridor, the new interchange at 169, 282, and 9, that's slated for the 2025-2026 time period. Two major projects that were not in motion back in 2019 when the county adopted the 2040 plan. And it's staff's opinion that these two transportation projects are the changes in condition that are looked at when we review land use changes in the comp plan. So,
Mr. Chair?
yes.
Brad, I just had one question. If we go back to the transportation plan. Bluff Drive, if trucks come up this way, how do trucks get back onto 169 here off Bluff Drive?
Which direction are you
Go
thinking?
north or south?
So it's my understanding, going southbound, they will go underneath the overpass
Go down that
and
way?
take a right in here
Okay,
and then access wherever they need to. And then when leaving, they will then go over the overpass, down this frontage road, go to this location, and then take a right
and go
out,
north then.
right out only, northbound.
So Bluff Drive, you can't get in and off right away from Bluff Drive. Okay. Thank you.
So there's a section in the staff report that talks about septic, and one thing to note is that 3 properties in the corridor area are already hooked up to the City of Jordan sewer. Those are the ones shown here in purple. So the regional training facility, the JAF, juvenile facility, and the mosquito control district have been hooked up to the City of Jordan sewer since I think maybe the 1990s, if I saw the history right. I think it's when the county was converting the building where the training facility is at that time was a jail annex. And so I think there was an agreement to get city sewer out to serve those properties. And then they also hooked up the JAF and the mosquito control district. So the city's comment letter provides, again, information on how they plan to serve this area with lift stations and gravity mains and force mains. They provided that information. The township engineer then also provided and commented on the design, costs, and maintenance of extending public sewer and water into this area. And then today, the city then commented on some of those comments that the township engineer raised, and that was sent to you, and you have a printed out version of that in front of you as well. So there's been a lot of information that's been provided to you just on the ability to extend public sewer and water to serve this area. Today, the current situation, so of the 27 properties, 8 of them have an on-site septic system, and that's shown here in either a yellow dot or a green dot. Half of them were installed since the 1990s. The other half go back, I think, to the 1970s, if I remember.
Brad?
Yeah.
I have one question. On the municipal, the scale project and the other ones there, they have sewer already, right? And the sewer goes south to the city, Jordan's wastewater treatment plant?
That's my general understanding. I know we have staff from the city here tonight that might be able to give you more precise information, but it's my general understanding that a sewer line just to serve these properties then travels directly
Do they have
south.
capacity to add more? It's the question maybe we have to ask the city of Jordan then. Okay, thank you.
So in the staff report, we talk about the review criteria. The 2040 plan establishes criteria to review comp plan amendments like this or land use changes. I have the text here in front of you. They shall occur when they promote land use compatibility, meet the goals and policies of the comp plan, and be based on A, B, or C. So the staff report talks about the compatibility. It is staff's finding that the rural business uses proposed along here would be compatible with a regional training facility, with a juvenile facility, and with a mosquito control district and an assisted living center. So we do think that those future uses would be compatible. We do believe it meets some of the goals and policies in the comprehensive plan. We list those out in the staff report. I think there's 3 of them that are mentioned as policies that you could base your decision on. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, we do think there is a change in condition in this geographic area that wasn't in place in 2019. So staff is recommending approval of the comp plan amendment. We list that in the staff report. And I'm just going to read it so I don't misspeak what the recommendation is. So staff is supportive of the town board's requested plan land use amendment as it's consistent with the staff's position in the 2020 comprehensive plan amendment. So if you recall, again, one of those concepts that we looked at did precipitate a comp plan amendment. Staff did recommend approval of that at the time. It also reflects the Planning Commission's position back in 2020 that you felt you weren't quite prepared to support that comp plan amendment, and you wanted to wait and consider regarding the entire corridor, not just one at a time, piecemeal fashion, but you wanted to think about the entire corridor. And you wanted to make sure that road infrastructure improvements accessing Highway 169 were in place or in motion to safely accommodate increased traffic generated from these properties. So staff is supportive of the township's position that if we see any rezoning, plating, and permitting activities associated with this land use change, it will require upgrades to Valley View Drive. In addition, we support a position that any rural business developed in the corridor should be required to provide shared or individual septic systems that comply with state and county septic rules, and such designs and developers' agreements must account for the eventual hookup to urban services when they become available. So that is staff's recommendation. I'm going to ask if the applicant wants to make any comments before we turn it over to the public hearing.
Okay.
Does the applicant want to make any comments?
Mr. Chair, I have a question before the public hearing.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Chair,
Good evening.
Commissioners. So I'm Chad Sandy, one of the township supervisors for Sand Creek. I've just here to tell you that we're really proud of Sand Creek Township. We're unique in that we're one of the only ones that does have a kind of a rural industrial park like we do here, and to the north. And the township has worked really hard the past number of years to be a good steward of our township and to work closely with the county and the city, and to just, to play our part and to live up to what we perceive to be our role in this puzzle here. And simply put, we're asking for, I guess, some common sense. This isn't a game of he said, she said. This isn't a game of we've got ours, so now you can't have yours. What we're really trying to do here is we're trying to keep control of our township area, because we believe that we can do it the best. We're very concerned for our residents. We're concerned about our wildlife habitat. We're concerned about our natural areas. But our board has not only have we worked long and hard at Bluff Drive overpass. But we commissioned a study back in 2018 that identified all of the safety hazards along 169. And that study was so well looked upon that it was placed in the 2040 comp plan. And it identified a terrible amount of traffic hazards and conflicts through our area of the township, and we didn't take that lightly, you know? And the county now has stepped forward and in a bunch of collaboration, they've put together transportation tax dollars to help fund that overpass. And so these things, you know, you don't realize what's happening at the time, but they have a tendency to evolve into things, and these are good things, you know. And what has happened here is that it's evolved, and it's and now we've got a clear picture today of what we didn't have before. And we thought that we were just trying to take care of a dangerous intersection or two. But now, you know, we've got a place that we've created here, or that we have the potential to create, and it's more economic. Commerce is there, you know, I mean, and it's a boon for the entire county. It's a boon for the city of Jordan. It's a boon for our township. And so we're not trying to say, hey, you know, we see there's an economic benefit to the Sand Creek Township here that we really have to go after. That's not it at all. What we think that as a township board, that we know better what our residents want. There's probably going to be people in this room that say, well, no, you know, we don't want it to change at all. But that's always the case. I mean, unfortunately, it's called progress, but we're really thoughtfully trying to do the right thing here. And the reason why the township is sponsoring it is because it's the right thing to do. And it's the right thing to have the township be the steward of this, because we can better comport between ourselves and the residents, and ourselves and these types of uses that are wanting to be there. And so there's not always a perfect example, but the two developers that are in the room tonight, and you'll hear from them later, I'm sure, but they own most of the land through there. So it's like, well, if that's not the direction that it's going, and we have to lay ourselves aside and wait for future progress and for the city to catch up with it out there, then so be it. But that's not, you know, that's not the best steward of their economic givings either. So I guess what we're passionate about what we're doing here, and we really wouldn't have gone the mile of sponsoring a comp plan amendment like this, because it's unheard of for a township to do it. But there's a reason why, you know, I mean, we care about it. We want to maintain local grassroots control over this area, and we want to be able to blend it in the best that we can with the surroundings, and we are, you know, concerned for everything that this would possibly bring. But at the same time, we have to be realists, and we have to understand that we're in the path of growth. And we think, in our opinion, that that we can do it, you know, the best, given the ramifications with the properties, and that this is probably the highest and best use that's the most minimum impact on the corridor itself. So I'm certain that after the public hearing starts, you know, there will be a ton of things that we'll maybe have to respond to. But I appreciate your listening, and I really would like your support, because this is more than just trying to. You know, I'm not an engineer, and it gets really complicated. But it's not about that as much as it is about, it's just the right common sense thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
All right, so as part of a comp plan amendment, we do a public hearing, and notices were mailed out to 125 property owners, both within the corridor itself and then a half-mile radius around the corridor. And this map here shows generally the parcels that were within that radius. Since the public hearing notice went out, our office has received a lot of email public comments, maybe a dozen. And all of those were shared with you today by email. So I bundled all of them up, shared them with you. You also have printed copies of them. They will be made part of the formal public record on this decision. So I think with that, I'll ask that you.
Before we,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
believe there's a question that Commissioner Robbins has for you.
Mr. Davis, you were talking about, I want to go ahead, a little step ahead a minute, that whatever development proposals are proposed for this site, before they can be finally approved, they have to be looked at for environmental concerns, for septic concerns. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm not, I mean, suppose this goes ahead, before it becomes law, so to speak, what kinds of reviews and things do you make the developers go through?
Yeah, Commissioner Robbins. So if we did see one of these properties come in for development after the comp plan amendment, it would likely, it would require a rezone. So that's an application that triggers a public hearing and a public review. It would require platting, subdividing the land into smaller lots. And it may require a conditional use permit depending on the types of uses being proposed. So all of those applications go through our typical review process. May require a development review team meeting again once we get more precise uses and layouts. That's what we call a pre-application meeting that involves the county, the township, and the city, and then staff to provide comments on those concepts. And then if it becomes a formal application, we then go through the staff report, the reviews that you're used to seeing, the public hearings, the public notices. We go through that process before the plat, the rezone, and a conditional use permit would be approved. And again, it would be then your recommendation to the county board on all those different applications and plats.
Just one follow-up. And do you also then take a look at the impact that development would have on the water, on the environmental, you do all of that with this review, right?
That'd be all part of the review. And then, so you look at site, you look specifically on what is located on the property. It would likely require a wetland delineation to determine the exact boundaries of any wetlands on the property. Those boundaries then inform what the buffers would need to be, so you can't put any buildings, septics, wells within that buffer zone. It would determine the precise elevation of any floodplains on that property to, again, determine what the ground floor area would be for any buildings that would be put on the property.
All right, thank you, Mr.
We would then look at the uses of the property, and if they're uses that handle oils or other chemicals or materials, we would take it through our typical process of needing a solid or hazardous waste license and get inspected and go through the protocols of putting in catch basins on drain tile or drains and other elements within the building itself. It gets the whole building code review. So it's a lot of review and process that would be looked at to make sure that any environmental impacts are addressed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Hussain.
Mr. Chair, I have this question. I just want reaffirmation that this area that the applicant wants to be recategorized is part of the comprehensive plan.
Part of the comprehensive plan for the county?
Yeah, for the county.
Yeah, I can show you the, oops, the map. I'll use this map, Commissioner Hussain. So this is the entire county's planned land use map, 2040 planned land use map. And it's a little hard to see the township boundaries, but generally the entire township is located in this area. As I mentioned before, a lot of the area is guided for that transition area, but the area that we're looking at here tonight is guided in that urban business reserve category.
Okay. And in a previous drawing, you showed some area that is developed in 2019 or 2018. There was some area besides that magenta lines. So that was, is that also developed, or
Which area is that, Commissioner Hussain?
can you go back to the, yeah, yeah, no, this one.
Yep,
So in that 2018 drawing, the third one,
yep.
that lines that are blue, the yellow part, and
This area here.
yeah, that's one.
Yeah, this is all the county's transition area, so this is a broad category we use at the county for the transition area, and that's densities of 4 per 40. So fairly low density, intended to allow some cluster development until ultimately served by.
But that is also
Right.
part of the comprehensive plan.
No, that is outside of the corridor area. So the only parcels that we're considering tonight are the parcels on this map in the red striped color.
Oh, okay.
That's it. That map that I showed at the beginning might help. Sorry, scrolling here. This map might help. We're really focusing on these parcels here, Commissioner Hussain, going to these here.
Not those with the blue lines.
Only the ones that you see here are being proposed to go from the candy stripe red color today to the yellow blue lines in the future.
Okay. Another question will be this. I don't know if it is for you. This question, this request is in 3 parts. Is there any particular reason for combining all the 3 parts of the request into one?
Well, so I'll answer them one at a time, Commissioner Hussain. I think the township proposed a whole area, a whole corridor, but wanted different designations for different parts of the corridor.
Can't they have the separate request for each designated area?
Commissioner Hussain, technically they could have put in 3 requests for the 3 separate areas. I don't know, for efficiency's sake, that would have been very good to go through this process and public hearings on each of those 3 requests. And so when you get an area wide like this, we bundled it in one to have a little bit more efficient process.
So because from our perspective, I feel that we will have to take 3 as separate action on these. Each part requires separate kind of consideration to take action on that respect.
In your deliberations, you can certainly talk about all 3 areas, but we're looking just for one recommendation on the township's request, and that's the whole bundled request. And so I'm not going to ask you to separate them out here tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Watson.
Mr. Davis, I just wanted to have you give us an assessment on the 169 corridor reconstruction and the design process that's going to be undertaking, and the timings on the time limit for that be fully complete. I would think that would be part and parcel of this commercial development to enhance traffic flow in and out.
Yeah, I'll take them one at a time. Again, I think the project in design and maybe even closely out for bid is the Bluff Drive project that I showed you. I believe that work is slated to begin in 2024. I don't have an end date to that project, but maybe ending in 2025, not positive. The connection from 173rd to Jordan Avenue, probably 2025, but maybe someone can answer that when they come to the podium. They might have those precise dates, but it could be 2025. And then the new interchange at the city of Jordan at 282, 9, and 169, I've generally seen slated for 2025, 2026. But again, I might be corrected here if someone in the room has more precise dates. But that's generally it. So to maybe answer your question, when all of these projects get done and free flowing, maybe it's 2027 when all of them are done. But I'm just going off the dates I'm remembering.
I would expect the developers would have an answer for when they would anticipate to do site prep and start to make final preps for their business park.
I don't have a precise answer on that, Commissioner. They are in the room tonight, so if that is a question you need to know, I'd encourage you to ask them directly their timelines.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. I didn't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt your presentation there. I
You
did
did
have
not.
one other question, though, just for clarification.
Sure.
There's 430 acres in this comp plan amendment request. Of that 430 acres, 118 are developable, and then that leaves 312 acres. What happens to that?
Yeah, Commissioner Von Hoff, a lot of that is in the floodplain, which is undevelopable for the most part. There are some ground features you can put in a floodplain, parking or some other things, but generally no buildings or anything that can obstruct the flow of water at flood stage. So pretty undevelopable, I'd say, when you're in a floodplain. The rest of it is probably wetlands, again, undevelopable. And those are the two probably biggest features that make up the undevelopable acreage.
Okay. Just need clarification. Thank you. And continue on with the presentation. Sorry.
Well, again, I'm done. So I invite you to formally open the public hearing, and staff will be here to answer questions. We do have Kate Sabachik from the Environmental Services Department here tonight as well, in case there's specific questions on septic or any environmental type questions, then Kate can help me answer those.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. The public hearing is now open. You may approach the podium. There is a sign-in sheet, and please start by identifying yourself when you come up to the podium.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Mike Waltman, the Jordan City Engineer. With me is a planning consultant for the City of Jordan as well, Jenny Faulkner. We have provided comments to the Planning Commission. We'll be brief with our commentary here tonight and certainly take any questions on our written comments that have been provided. At bottom line, the City of Jordan's request is that action on this item be tabled or denied for the interim until such time some orderly annexation agreement discussions can play out between the city and the township. I appreciated Mr. Davis's presentation here, sharing some of the 2040 mapping boundary outlines, some of the OAA boundaries in the comprehensive plan, which you may have noticed. There is no OAA for Sand Creek Township in the city of Jordan, and similarly, there's no 2040 boundary into Sand Creek Township as a result. The Met Council would not allow the city to plot a 2040 boundary without that OAA being in place. So it's really been a hindrance to long-term land use planning and leads to, conflicts, agencies wanting different things, such as the scenario that we're listening to here tonight. The area is within the ultimate sewer service area for the city of Jordan. We have identified capital improvement planning of an upcoming project to extend services here in partnership with the developer. Really haven't been able to have those detailed conversations to play out how the sewer and water service could go in the interim. Again, we don't have an OAA. There's one parcel in between the city and these properties seeking to develop. That's essentially a driveway width wide, preventing that annexation at this time. And really what the city is looking for is just making sure the long-term land use planning, the area adjacent to the community, the areas that can be sewered and watered with municipal services, the right decision gets made there. And so allowing OAA discussions to play out, which was really an outcome of a June meeting between all three parties, but was since sidetracked by this comprehensive plan amendment process. Looking to restart that discussion and make sure that plays out. With that, I'll hand it off to Jenny for any other planning related comments.
Thank you, Mr. Fulton.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Jenny Faulkner, Consulting Planner with the City of Jordan. I thought Mr. Davis did a nice job presenting the overall comments that the city had. I will just summarize the comments, kind of try to be as succinct as I can. In looking at the county's comp plan, the city's comp plan, I would just say that this proposal is more inconsistent with those comp plans than it is consistent. There are back and forth of what's consistent, what's not, but it seems to be more inconsistent than it is. Approving this would result in rural township development that gets the benefit of being in a city without being in a city, or paying taxes or the fees that go along with being in the city, that get access to the roads and whatnot, perhaps public safety without having to pay for those services. Also, the proposal will result in lower type density of industrial park development, resulting in fewer jobs. There was talks about a lot of open storage, given that the area that is lower value development for the county. I think there's an opportunity to do better if this is hooked up to city services, to have more intense type development with more jobs, more square footage of buildings as opposed to office space and spaces for septic systems and whatnot. This type of development encourages leapfrog non-contiguous development, which will be more costly to connect to in the future. It puts cities who have extended infrastructure and plan for extending infrastructure at a disadvantage, an economic disadvantage for future development compared to the townships. So they've already done some planning in this area, and now what? Because they followed the plan. And lastly, Mr. Davis said this application, your decision recommendation, has consequences, and it certainly does. And so the City of Jordan is just asking that you take a pause, table this item so that the parties can come together and continue discussions for orderly annexation. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for the city engineer. My understanding that the scale building and some other buildings are already sewered, and they go down to the treatment plant for the City of Jordan? So
Chair,
it goes right adjacent to this development, right?
Chair and Commissioner, yes, that's my understanding as well. Discharges to the city's collection system.
Can the sewer take the capacity for some of these additional industrial? They're not going to be heavy sewer uses, even water uses, I wouldn't think. Is that something the city can look at, see if we can hook up to the city sewer that's already there?
Chair and Commissioner, yes, the pipe in question was upsized in 2017 that these properties would be discharging to.
So they'll go to this existing sewer, did you say?
Chair and Commissioner, yes.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Commissioner Watson.
Can you go through the mechanics? If there's an option, say we proceed and these folks put in their own septic and real water, and then at some point you come down, we want to hook you up. The mechanics of that, is that very complicated? And what's the cost factor?
Commissioner Watson, Chair, thank you for the question. From a technical perspective, connecting a sewer service to a gravity sewer line, so long as the elevations work out, is relatively straightforward. However, the retrofit of gravity sanitary sewer to an established development is quite complex. You have the matter of septic systems failing at varying times, meaning adjacent property owners have varying incentive or disincentive, if you will, from a cost perspective to participate in that. You have annexation-related complexities of one parcel versus another, timing thereof to connect. In this particular case, while we've seen two concept plans in Mr. Davis's presentation, the first of which is relatively linear, the southerly one along Valley View Drive. It's one thing to install a linear collection system for each of those. The second one was a cul-de-sac headed away from Valley View Drive, where septic systems could be in rear yards, collecting after the fact, retrofitting a system to something like that. It may be difficult to get the elevations to work out if not carefully planned, such as with a shared septic that they all flow to initially. That gets pretty complicated, and I think the timing thereof adds complexity as well as the annexation to where it may not be feasible to put all the puzzle pieces together at one singular point in time in the future. I think that's been demonstrated in many places, likely in Scott County, if not across the metro.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, been back in that sewer already. If we approve this, could they just hook up to the sewer right now that you have in the road right now in Valley View?
Chair and
Instead
Commissioner,
of having septic system, they could go right to sanitary?
Commissioner Huber and Chair, yeah, with a Metropolitan Council sewer extension permit, well, as well as one from the MPCA, those would be the permits that would be required, but there is capacity right now.
So they
in the
could
sewer
hook up
pipe.
to that if they work with the city on it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Robert.
I'm kind of unclear, and maybe you can enlighten me. What exactly, I mean, you're not for this proposal. How would you like to see it go? Would you like to, and let me just lead you a little bit. If there was an orderly annexation agreement that happened very soon that included this area, then if this proposal went through, it would be through Jordan. Is that right?
Commissioner and Chair, I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, however.
Well, you're not for this proposal. You want to sit down and you want to wait. So I guess my question is, what are you for? If these developers and this comp plan is going to happen, how would you want it to happen?
Commissioner and Chair, the city would like to work with these developers on a potential extension of municipal services to these areas. The city has plans to extend those services. And so the way those processes typically would play out, this one being somewhat unique in that you have one property that we need to leapfrog to get to it. We would sit down with the developer to discuss the utility extension, who pays for which portion. The city does anticipate through its capital improvement planning process and budgeting right now to share in some of that cost. But we really haven't had much opportunity, nor does the developer has the incentive to sit down with the city to have that specific discussion, namely because we're not able to annex the property. There was attempts to get out to this property through annexation in 2019 that weren't fruitful. Again, we have one property in between that's prohibiting that. So there hasn't been much opportunity for a fruitful discussion along those lines. If there were an OAA in place, however, leapfrogging properties, what have you, that issue is different.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Pika?
I think that's where we're getting confused. You got the pipeline, sewer line out there to this, but needs to be annexed in before you do it. I think we're all kind of confused on that. Being the line is running out already, and you can hook up to it, why does it need to be annexed in, I guess is what my question is.
Sure. Commissioners and Chair, the line in question is a relatively small pumped sewer line. It's not a gravity collection system.
It is not sized yet then for that.
The individual existing service line for those few properties is not a gravity collection system that's intended to serve multiple. The receiving sanitary sewer pipe is.
Is the water, do you have water enough to supply them to, or is there like another well drilling process or stuff that if you do supply this?
Chair and Commissioner, it would be a water main extension to serve these properties. There's not public water supply out to those subject properties.
But you have the water supply though in hand, basically.
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sain, did you have a question?
So I take it that in your plan, you do plan on having that sewage line and extending it into that area. So the time may not be right now, or you haven't mentioned when you plan on doing that. So can you reconcile or talk to the township and extend your timeline to meet their goals?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Commissioner Hussein. Chair, the timing of municipal sewer and water extension would be development driven, so it would be hinged on the timing of the development going in. You know, we wouldn't necessarily typically just extend utilities without the receiving development proposed. We do them simultaneously.
Yeah, but what is the timeline present in the present circumstances? What is your timeline for extending these facilities to that area?
Sure. Commissioner Hussein, Chair, it's currently listed in the city's capital improvement plan for 2024. However, we're awaiting discussion with the developer, recognizing some interest in doing things short-term. We wanted to budget and retain flexibility to do it as soon as possible to the question. However, it would be development-driven. We would do it at the same time the development's actually proposed.
So you're talking only to the developer. Can you also talk to these town people and coordinate the effort?
Commissioner Hussein, Chair, yes, there was a June 5th meeting between township, city, county representatives to do just that. One of the outcomes of that meeting was to restart orderly annexation agreement discussions, the first of which meeting happened late July, I believe. And shortly thereafter, the comprehensive plan amendment process was initiated and those orderly annexation agreements ceased. So the discussion with the township had been initiated along these lines, and we're looking to restart that and just make sure we have the process in place to go that path.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question for the city engineer. I hate to keep coming back on this sewer thing, but the existing sewer has capacity to carry these. Is that correct or not? Existing sewer that comes from scale down to your treatment plant or your treatment area, do they have the capacity to carry these industrial, commercial development?
Commissioner Huber, Chair, the individual service line for the scale facility is not designed to serve multiple properties, no.
So it's not big enough to pick these up?
Correct. The receiving sanitary sewer main in the intersection of Valley View Drive, Syndicate Street, has capacity to serve the subject properties.
It does?
Yes.
But not the one from scale?
Correct. The individual service line feeding scale does not.
So they can't hook up to this sewer line right now? Or could there be agreement with Sand Creek, with the city of Jordan, to hook up to this sewer line?
Commissioner Huber, they would connect to the existing main located at Syndicate Street and Valley View Drive.
How far? I guess I don't know exactly where that is, quite a way south?
The existing city limits.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hentges.
I don't even know who to address my question to, and that's very unusual for me. I'm really confused. I don't think this meeting is about a sewer system, okay? I think that the concerns that the city of Jordan raised they're both valid and troubling to me. I think we're rushing into this for whatever reason. It's on fire, and developers want to develop it, and now we're going to back into everything. And I can't wait for the public hearing. I mean, I read all this paperwork. What about groundwater contamination? What about issues with 169? What about floodplain issues? What about stormwater management? There's so many issues here. And I think we need to slow down here and try to figure out what's going on. So many times if you move 95 miles an hour, you just make a whole bunch of mistakes. And right now, I'm concerned that this thing feels like a ready, fire, aim project to me. And I have concerns about it. So I'll shut up. I can't wait for the public hearing.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Try not to electrocute us.
You've met me before recently. I was here May or whatever that was, because I told you that I am Beverly Canaan. I don't live there, but I own all the property that's to the north of 173 and out to the road. And I mean out to the road, none of the stuff that they're doing that is evil at my place right now. Okay, if one of you is able to bring up that area that showed my place.
Yeah, Stephanie will come up and help.
So, Mr. Chair, Bev's property, so this is 173rd, so her property is right here.
Okay, thank you.
And which is the one that shows that the way you've stolen my property, and now they have been out there again. Let's see if I can. I'm not seeing it on here.
Can you help her? Greg, sure.
I'm looking for 173. But I'm looking for the path that you made through my property. No, it's not a road. It's what they've been stealing from me for years now. And but trust me, I'm not just gonna let it happen any further.
So this is 173, so this would be over
Here, this is what I want. Okay, first of all, before I get the good information to you, I'm gonna tell you what they gave me for this old ruckus. I got their notice in the mail that this is gonna happen.
Can you step to the mic, be by the microphone?
Okay. Okay, well, I got a thing like this in the mail that there's going to be this meeting tonight, and this would be another chance for me to tell them to knock it off. And so I read all this on the back and thought, well, I'm going to go to the library and look this up and see what they've got. You know, how much of this I can be prepared for tonight. And this is what, now maybe put it down. Yeah, it's, okay, well, I don't know what happened to it already. Anyhow, it's kind of, it's to me kind of silly. Oh, I think I put it in here. Oh, I picked up this. I didn't get the piece. But anyhow, what it is just a funny thing that they printed at the library for me, and there is absolutely no information on there. It is had some funny things saying that I have to do some other looking up someplace else, and I won't take it any further because I don't have it up here right now. But it's just a funny way that suddenly I have no help at all from the county, and that's nothing new because they are, in my opinion, just evil. I don't know if you can see when I point here now on your picture there.
We can't see it.
Oh, of course. All right, well, I own one.
Now we can see it.
Okay. Okay, I own all the way up to 173 up the hill. If you can see it, there's a mark here that's looks like a black snake that went through or something there. That is all land that they've stolen from me, from that down to the road. They think, I don't know where they ever started. I've been looking into it, of course, and the thing that they're doing looks like it's mostly the state that's pushing them. I'm certainly not going to forget that there's a lawyer. There are lawyers in the world. What I'm telling you is this man and woman that spoke were just telling you the simple little sweet things that they do. you don't know what all they have done to my property. I went out there, I've been out there now a couple times lately, and I've walked the whole area. And where they have made this, I'll call it a snake. It goes up and then out to the road. That water is coming, I don't know where from, but they're finding more all the years, and they're just dumping it down through this big chunk of my property that they are owning. And the closest I've gotten is that they've been digging this trench for I don't know how many years now, and water is coming out there all the time. Now, like I said, I was just out there a couple weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago, and somewhere they're getting water from somewhere else, and it's coming down through mine and out to the left, and that was never there in the past. It's something, I've owned that property since 1970-something, I guess it was. So I'm gonna make it simple for you tonight. I just say fire everybody that, where is that man that spoke? Most of the time, until they do something like to be decent to these people, and me, if they can possibly ever be that good. That's all I need to say.
Thank you for your
You
comment.
you may go home and enjoy your time. And I'll show you my other paper. And by the way, when I was out there, I walked my whole perimeter of my place, which I like to do. Anyhow, they've already been out there being naughty since I was here the last time, or that, because they've taken more of my land along 173, and they've taken more along the road. In
Thank you
that
for your
short period of
comments.
time, yeah.
Thank you.
Because I was gonna bring those little sticks that they stuck in my property. It's out in my car. If you want to see it, I'll bring it in for later.
So that's fine. Thank you. This is a public hearing. The podium is open at this time. Anyone would like to make comment? Come forward. Please sign in when you come up to the podium and start with your name.
My name is Peggy Jo Danette, and I do have a few things that I would like to have you have. Yes, and then I will also, I understand there is a camera, which, okay, thank you.
I left it on the chair.
Anything? Okay, good. So okay. That's
This is what you have to explain. This, okay? Take it.
Dear Commissioners, the map that I would like you to look at, I feel is central to.
We can see it on our
this
screens.
area. I don't-
Yes.
Do you have?
Yeah, we have it right
Yeah,
here.
we have it on our screens.
Okay, you don't care to have, I mean, I made
No,
some.
thank you.
We're fine.
We have it.
So greetings and thank you to all of you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Okay, so I have been in love with this area in this corridor, and I've been boarding my horses here for 34 years. I bought property here 11 years ago, just adjacent to the subject property, subject proposal, and I have lived full-time here since 2015. I have been a business owner for 18 and a half years. I have 38 employees currently. Prior to that, I owned and operated my own business for 17 years importing antique furniture. So I understand business, I think, and I understand regulation also. And I do believe in the need for it sometimes. I also believe that the greater good is served by good and prudent regulation. I do care deeply about this area, and I must first and foremost push back against the notion that this area is connected to or related to Highway 169. I think we saw some maps earlier that may have caused some confusion. There was one of the maps that showed a loop when we were discussing the bridge, the Bluff Avenue Bridge, and then there was a discussion or mention of a loop, but that loop does not go as far as Valley View Drive. It looped around an industrial area which is served by that road, but this is not that. This is another area farther in and farther and closer to the wildlife refuge. So even if you are really very familiar with the area, I'm going to ask you to open your minds and just imagine that it's a long stretch of fields and woods that directly face and embrace the Minnesota Valley Wildlife Refuge. There is the scale facility, there is the water treatment plant, there is mosquito control and the juvenile alternative facility, but these do not an industrial park make. And they are not close to each other, and they're not piled up, and it's not a place that looks like an industrial park. It's not that at all. I guess I was hesitating how harsh it would sound if I said that, you know, as much as I understand business and profit and that kind of thing, I certainly would never walk into a place like this and think, oh, okay, I'm going to ignore the context. I'm going to ignore the wildlife area. I'm going to ignore the nursing home with people that come by on their walkers. I'm going to ignore the JAF. There are kids in trouble there. And nature is, I think, a very good healer for people in a lot of circumstances. And we see them there in this area. And I would be respectful of those people. I wouldn't walk into this and think of 30 to 40,000 square foot buildings. I would certainly not ignore the soils here and the documented difficulties and particularities and fragility of the soils. And I wouldn't, I certainly wouldn't just ignore how many people depend on the aquifer that's here, because that's a very real thing. Are you hearing me well, or am I coming in and out of the thing? It's okay? Okay. I would never say these things because my two major concerns for any further development in this area are based on the groundwater and on the incompatibility of commercial or development, industrial development in this location. So my two issues. Very concerned about these things, and I can see from the Planning Committee's report that you have concerns about these things too. And so does the City of Jordan, and so does Sand Creek Township. And these concerns are well-founded. So this is an area with very shallow ground. When the glaciers came and scoured out with their activity, they left the thinnest soils in the whole state of Minnesota right here. And what remains is uniquely sensitive and sieve-like. Yeah, okay, so that's that. And that describes us here. We are in, the infiltration rate here is very fast, which means it takes hours to weeks for the water that hits the surface to get into the aquifer, because we don't have the soils that are usually useful in filtering out contaminants. And this is described in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Scott County is dominated by glacial till, except along the Minnesota River, which is composed of alluvium and terrace deposits. There are also areas near the river where the bedrock is at or near the surface. The abundance of glacial till it would provide a layer of protection for the county's aquifers that lie in the sedimentary rock, except near the river where bedrock is near the surface. Groundwater is susceptible to contamination in these areas, and this is important as all Scott County drinking water comes from groundwater supplies. The infiltration rate, or time it takes to move from the surface to the aquifer, is a proxy for groundwater contaminant susceptibility. So the water is mere feet from where we stand if we are in this location. And this is the only water that we have to drink. Hundreds of letters were submitted to Scott County by the public on this matter just a few years ago, when the gravel mine was the topic of the day. And these are some of the concerns. Developers promise all kinds of things, but keep this in mind. Uncertainty abounds regarding the intensity of both floods and droughts, whereas there is zero uncertainty that we need clean, safe water. And we in Minnesota are not immune to water issues. Obviously, high floods can cause damage, but droughts pose their own problems. We must not be lulled into thinking that Minnesota has no clean water issues because we have so much water, but so this is from the press coverage of even odd watering restrictions, which the city of St. Paul and other municipalities had to engage in because of the drought just this last year. Now, of course, industrial and commercial uses would require copious amounts of water. That came up in our discussion, but it is a fact. And this could lead to drawing down the water table and diminishing the ability of at least 22 existing wells to serve their needs. And we too could make miserable headlines. Wells and more wells in the floodplain create open pathways for floodwater contamination to enter the water table. The pressure used to force water up the well casing creates negative pressure and draws down the well bore. Contamination from wastewater and chemical holding ponds or tanks is a foreseeable risk just waiting to start and be repeated. And containment is a nice theory, but in our area, one flood event would carry it all into the waterway. In speaking about the Sand Creek watershed, the city of Jordan states in its letter, quote, "Nitrates in particular can cause detrimental impacts to drinking sources, and not simply superficial wells. Water sources can become unexpectedly untenable as a result." And this is terrifying, and it's the city of Jordan's own words. Water sources can become unexpectedly untenable as a result. Adding septic tanks here is not a wise idea, given both the shallow soils and the proven flood-prone history in this area. One spring thaw would flush the contents of a septic tank or a containment tank right into the swirl and into the groundwater, again within hours. Attempts to mitigate floodwaters look good on paper, but nature happens. Weather extremes create unexpected challenge, which often defy the best of human plans with shocking results. Recall the recent logjam event just north of Jordan, which lasted several days. Valley Green residents were evacuated as floodwater rose. These events push floodwater upstream through Sand Creek Township and toward the city of Jordan. The low bridge over 173rd Street is a log jam waiting to happen. And then as a side note, somewhere in the report, I saw something about flushing lines directly into ditches with this flushing skunky, stagnant water.
That was from the township.
Okay,
Here,
well,
was making a report on that.
any kind of a loop.
To have you keep your comments,
Well, all right. Okay.
we want to give everyone an opportunity to speak.
I do have a lot to say respectfully, and I have thought a lot about this. I really have. I've spent many hours because I think I do have some points that perhaps may not be brought if I don't make them.
Well, if you can make them. in
Okay.
a-
Okay, all right. Okay, so for example, the stormwater holding ponds that are in this proposal, if we use this tree line and this right angle as a reference, and then we look again at the floodplain, this right angle here, the stormwater ponds that are planned are, they're flooded. And I did want to say that if you've never seen Sand Creek, when it turns into Sand Lake, this happens overnight in spring flooding. It can happen in exceptional rains. This is a wild area that truly overnight becomes something you never thought you'd see. So the plan of taming the floodwaters is, in my opinion, just a fool's gambit. Okay, so another issue here is grading, and grading in the floodplain and promising to contain the contaminants is an example of best laid plans of mice and men. I have no horse in the race here about who keeps or gains jurisdiction, but the issues basic to the matter are overarching that matter of who's in charge of it here. Jordan Gravel tried to, okay, wait, I really don't want to be rushed because I do have things to say here. I will say that I'm very glad that the city of Jordan brought up the issue of buying land under one zoning category and then trying to flip the zoning for another use. I complained about this back when Jordan Gravel was trying to set up the mining operation. And thank you, City of Jordan, for bringing this into light. This is indeed a dangerous precedent to set. To reward this strategy incentivizes such behavior for other areas. Jordan Gravel tried to change the rules for their mine, and now they're trying again with this proposal. They bought the land for agricultural use, but time has revealed that the intent all along has been to rezone it for commercial or industrial activity. And I think you asked if what has happened on this area so far. Well, clearing, they've already started clearing the land. They've started staking it, as if all of this was just a foregone conclusion. JMH removed the farmhouse. They've been grading or excavating or something with large heavy equipment in recent months in that area, down by the creek. And just this weekend, they removed a huge number of trees and had such a fire that calls were made to 911. Now, people are free to do what they want, but this activity is presumptuous. And now it appears that the presumption of industrial approval has now spread to the second property, and they seem to be trying the same tactic. They've cleared their land and started staking it. And what if there were protected species of vegetation in what they cleared away? Part of the future process of this is determining what's living there. And all of this was just taken away and burned. And then the other thing is, this is clearly in the county-defined natural area corridor. And your report states that protecting natural area corridors is not intended to prohibit development, but rather to guide development decisions. But let's look what the comp plan has to say. The areas are aimed at helping protect unique and sensitive features in Scott County. The program is intended to use conservation corridors that maintain a network of natural areas throughout the county. A natural area corridor is defined as a linear connection of natural features, which may include areas with known sensitive species or communities. And talk about sensitive communities and context. We're talking about an area that runs for miles. The wildlife refuge is, I think, one of the most beautiful things in the whole state of Minnesota. It's certainly one of the most beautiful things in the county. And I think that it's just a slap in the face this is what we're talking about. The context of this natural area, right facing the sunsets and the migratory birds and the eagles and the herons and all of the wildlife that comes and makes this such a special place. I'm feeling rushed. The key words here are linear connection and high-quality natural communities, and this area is home to both, more than anywhere else in the county, and we must not put this asunder. Okay, let's see, yes, this I have to tell you about, I have to talk about this now. This is the kind of activity, these were the photos that were provided as examples, as samples of what use could look like in this area. And I just think it's jarring to think of this and this and this as being compatible and comparable at all to what's there now. And if the documents and the intention is to respect linear connectivity, this isn't it. And I think it's really telling to think about how much of an island this is, and it's disconnected if it's set up as an island of industry and commerce. It just doesn't fit. It does not fit the area.
Okay, you've had 18 minutes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm going to give you 2 more minutes. And
Okay.
if you can wrap up your comments.
All right.
We need to get to everyone else.
All right.
This evening.
Okay. I think it's important not to be pushed by recent highway funding to make a mistake here, where a mistake would be forever, and we'd all have to live with the incompatibility and the risks to the groundwater. Nothing about this environment makes it uniquely suited to an industrial commercial application. On the contrary, its proximity to the wildlife refuge makes industry the wrong thing, and its island feature makes it an aberration standing oddly in the middle of important and cherished natural features. We pause at a point where we're contemplating the reshaping of an entire area. If this were right along Highway 169, like a little piece of it is, I think it's the part that you would like to have as a transition. I mean, that's right there, but this isn't. We're talking about commercial buildings and lots and traffic and concrete and asphalt plants and It just doesn't fit. The clutter and the disruption do not correspond to what this area is. And let's not forget that so much of why a gravel mine was denied here stands up in relevance with many of the very same issues, and nothing has changed since that time. It's still about groundwater, floodplain issues, and compatibility. The Minnesota Court of Appeals upheld the denial of the mine for all these reasons, and we would be wrong to forget it. No matter who ultimately ends up in control of what happens here, the city or the township, they must take up the reins with utmost reverence. Care must be taken and due respect given for this jewel in our county and this water beneath our feet.
Thank you.
Mention was also made that we don't really need to do this here. The city pointed out that there are other places that could be used for this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mary Schenk, and I have a horse boarding facility. Can we get a map up here? I can just show you exactly where we are. I'm not very techie.
There's this thing. She must have taken it. Okay.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Okay, so
We can't see.
Can't hear you. You got that microphone.
oh, okay, I can use the cursor.
We can't see.
Okay.
There you go.
I can use the cursor.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, this little diamond or triangle popular area property is right across from me. I live right here. This area right here, and this little red line right here is my road. It comes down to 60 acres that I own right here. We own from the end of this road, down the berm, over to 169, down 169, and around the edge of the sterilization ponds. So that's the area that we live in. And I just want to have a few comments. I've lived there 40 years now, and the floodplain is always kind of a fun thing to go through every spring. I've had, we built paddocks over on our 60 acres. We also cut hay and raise all of our own hay over there. We have riding trails in the woods where our clients that board their horses can ride in the woods if possible and around the hay fields, and they have to come across the tracks in order to do that. So when the gravel pit thing was in the air, they were talking, Connie was talking about changing the road right there where it goes across the tracks, and they would enlarge it and make it bigger because the big semi trucks that were going to haul the gravel can't pass each other in the area. Well, it would take a great portion of my dressage arena out, which is way below the road level, so they'd have to build everything up, and we would lose part of our function as a riding staple there. So across where our horses, we built paddocks over there for summertime where the horses can come over and graze all summer long. There's no electricity and there's no water over there. So we haul water over by hand. And we did sink a sand point at the corner of the paddock over there. We only had to go down 6 feet. You can pump the sand point all day long and get the best, most beautiful drinking water, and the horses love it. but you don't have to go down very far. And when we built our 2 paddocks over there, we put in wooden posts, and I dug my post hole digger down through the very hard ground, because I had to wait till the floodwaters were gone. You only went down 2 feet and your hole's full of water. So the water table is really high there. And there were years in the past when the flood came up, we were just starting to put horses over there. We didn't have a wooden paddock yet, we just put an electric wire up. Overnight, we had 5 horses over there in that paddock. I had to go out at midnight because the floodwaters were coming up. We had to swim the horses back to our farm. The water came up so fast. So we took our canoe and drove it over, flew it over to the paddock, collected the horses, and we swam them back to our property. So you have to think of the flood very seriously because it does not quit. It does not obey any rules. It doesn't go by anything anybody says. It does what it wants to do. So there used to be an overpass at, I don't remember the name, there 163rd Street or something, just at the end of our property. That road used to come off of 169 and go right into the jail annex, the jail. But that road's gone now because the floodwaters took it out, just took it out, and Jordan tried to repair it year after year after year, but it didn't work. It's gone. So that's a serious thing. Because I've lived in this area for so long, we've loved it. We love to look out our back window across to the Minnesota River Valley, and we watch the nesting eagles, we watch the herons, we watch the sand cranes come in. We don't want to lose that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Would anyone else like to make comment?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Mark Sonstegard. I'm with JMH Land, so we would be one of the developers interested in developing this area as the new zoning. A little bit about the property that JMH has, and I was before you about two and a half years ago, where we had the same, well, we were actually requesting to be re-guided towards an industrial rather than the rural business reserve. But at that time, there were a number of unknowns. One of the main issues that we discussed or talked about was access to the property, and at that time, we felt it was good to take a pause and let see how the 169 corridors improvements would help out access to this area of development. Couple things I just listening today or this evening, just so that we all understand our starting point. This area is zoned or guided for future urban business. So the candy-shaped stuff is guided towards industrial development. The way that current zoning is, as the city engineer mentioned, it's until city can get here. And if the city was adjacent to this property, we would be before you with a zoning change to I-1 or an industrial use. And there we wouldn't have, since it's guided that way, that's the process we would go. Again, the planning has been in place here for this to be an industrial site. So I understand the nature and trying to preserve what's been there, but I guess I just wanted to make everyone clear that this area has been guided and talked about for industrial use sometime in the future. So the question tonight that I thought we'd have more conversations about is, do we wait till the city can provide water and sewer service, or is now a good time, like Mr. Sandy mentioned, that, hey, let's go with it with a rural business reserve and let the township manage it and oversee it. So I guess the benefits of for having ITCO Rural Business Reserve, which is in front of you today, is that process may actually end up being a little less dense. The development that we're looking at bringing in, or the industrial uses that we're looking to bring in, are more of your, to start out, low water impact use. So the agencies or companies we're looking at is a plumbing shop or a mechanical shop, someone that wants a small building, an office, they have a kitchen or a bathroom or something, but not high water usage. But basically what they're looking for is outdoor storage, or a landscape company or a landscape maintenance company. Those are the users that have contacted us and that are needed. The city had mentioned that, if we wait for the city, then we could have more dense uses and we can have more of a population or more jobs and stuff like that. And that's probably true. And we probably would have to do that, because to bring the water and sewer up in this area, that doesn't come without a cost. There's a rather big number on that ticket, as the township engineer mentioned in his memo. That would have to be somehow figured out between the city and the developers. So as the developer, JMH Land, we would prefer to develop the site for users that are interested right now. Not necessarily high density, but basically, we got the 5 to 10 acre lot. We want a building to have our shop. We want some outdoor storage space. Again, the JMH Land piece is a little under 100 acres. Not even half of it's developable. So most of it would be either in the floodplain or a wetland, or it's in the creek. So to answer Commissioner Hench's questions or concerns, tonight we're asking you to change the guidance from, wait till the city can get here and make it industrial, or go right now. Now, all the things that are of concern with the folks here and yourself, which would include, the watershed and the wetlands and all that stuff, all that is done during the application process for the rezoning and the development as we come in and bring our plans. Like, as we design our buildings and where we set our septics and do our impervious surface calculation, there's rules for all that. We're not putting anything in a floodplain. We're not putting ponding in a floodplain. So actually, in our site, we're looking to actually expand the wetland, improve the wetland, and actually create some type of wetland bank there. So with our development, I think Mr. Sandy mentioned to this, with the watershed or the township, they're looking, this corridor that we're looking at, that's wetland and floodplains and all that. As we develop, we would be looking to improve that. I know the other developer was looking to put up a rather large conservation easement in that area as he developed his parts. So yeah, there's areas in here that we'd like to develop. It'd be on the high and dry areas. There's a lot of scrutiny in all our plans as we do our approvals. But I guess the question tonight is, do you wait till the city can come in and supply us with water and sewer, or do you change it to this new zoning and then let the township manage it, and then we go from there? But either way, it's going to get developed sometime down the road. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, I have just one question for you on the septic in that. It'll be some type of septic system. It's mostly sand, so it should work just fine. But can you put it up on the front side, closer to the road, so when the city comes in with sewer and water, that is easier to hook up?
Someday, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you can do that. Well, good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Jennifer Haskamp. I'm here on behalf of Mess and Brink Construction. They are the other developer. So I figured we'd keep the development train going as long as we've started it. So first of all, I'd like to thank your staff because I think they did an exceptional job with their review. And oftentimes when I look at comprehensive plan amendments, they're not the most thorough. So I really appreciate staff's work. I am an urban planner by profession. That is my trade. And so understanding how this comprehensive plan amendment works in terms of the timing, whether or not it's hooked up to the city's municipal services, whether it is on individual septic, is the stuff I deal with every single day. So from that perspective, we've heard a lot about this process. We've heard a lot about, do we wait? Do we use the tools that are in place right now to allow us to develop today? And of course, we're here asking you to consider that you allow us to develop today. We think we've had a wonderful relationship with the township thus far. They've been incredibly thoughtful in their process and looking at how we can improve infrastructure to make this an accessible site, to make it safe. That's something that's very important to the developer on our site. There's been a lot of talk about how the septic systems might work. In your comprehensive plan, also in the township's comprehensive plan, in properties and areas that are in this designation, they are actually required to make sure that whatever design goes into place, that they can be hooked up in the future to that municipal system. So the intent here is not to say that our system would never be able to hook up to the city system. In fact, we are looking at this in a very proactive way to say, how can we put the infrastructure in the ground today so that in and when such time that municipal infrastructure is available, we can hook into it. So you asked a little bit about, can you position the septic systems, for example, in a position where it is easier to make that hookup happen? The answer to that is yes. And in fact, your comprehensive plan, as well as the township, requires that. And so the intent is, if we clear this hurdle, if we get the comprehensive plan amendment, that the next step is site design. And so while we know that the site does work for septic systems today, because we've done some preliminary analysis, due diligence, we need to go to that next step. And that next step really does involve, how do we design this in such a way that it can hook up to the Jordan system in the future when that becomes available? We have users today. Your staff commented on the fact that we know this is something that is demanded in the community today. It's actually demanded throughout the entire Twin Cities metro area. In a lot of ways, I would argue that this site is perfectly positioned for it from the standpoint of outdoor storage, parking lots, things like that, of that nature. When the site is designed properly, can be designed in a way that if flooding does occur, that we are not causing significant damage to structures. So it's about site design and how we lay that out. The second piece is, there's lots of ways that we can take a look at introducing native vegetation into the mix along buffer areas and ensuring that any stormwater that does collect on site, that is infiltrated before it ever hits any surface water body. So from that perspective, there's lots of innovative techniques that exist out there in order to make that occur. The other thing I would say to that with respect to individual septic systems is that there are ways also to actually create very clean effluent that comes out of those septic systems. The septic systems of today are not the same as those from the 1960s. I don't have to tell you guys that, I'm sure you're well aware of it. I've seen some of the effluent coming out of some of those systems, and it is cleaner than the stuff that is coming out of the regional septic or the regional wastewater treatment facilities. It is crystal clear. It allows for localized groundwater recharge, and it is not contaminating the groundwater. So from that respect, there's lots of innovation, there's lots of technology, and there's lots of ways for us to explore that as we go into the next phase if the comprehensive plan amendment is approved this evening. Lastly, I'll just touch on the fact that we have started to explore the opportunity of how we might put a portion of this in a conservation easement, what that area might be. And so when we talk about that corridor, when we talk about natural resource preservation, connecting through a corridor along the river, there's many ways to do that. And obviously, I know There's always a little bit of mistrust when it comes to a development team, but that is clearly an objective from our process and site development review, is to figure out how do we protect the sensitive areas and how do we make sure that that natural resource corridor is protected. So with that, we would ask you, obviously, this evening to approve the comprehensive plan amendment. And again, we thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. I'd like to get around to everyone first. Anyone else like to make comment? This is a public hearing.
I was told to be nice.
Good evening, I'm Matt Stordahl with Stantec. I'm the township's engineer. There was a little bit of information in your packet that was put together. We had some confusion, possibly some errors in there. I wanted to explain that away a little bit. So the water system planning is a tricky thing when we start looking at the significant elevation that we have between the top of the bluff and the elevations along Valley View. So where the challenge in this system is, at this point anyway, is that we would have an effectively about a 10,000 foot-ish dead end line. And the city's comprehensive plan shows for a 12-inch pipe going out that direction, which is very suitable for fire protection. The domestic service needs, would be very likely significantly less than that, unless there was somebody that had a big water demand. The Niagara bottling facility that we've talked about in other areas of the township is one that would come to mind that might have enough demand to keep the water moving through that system. But certainly the types of facilities that the developers have talked with the township about would be nowhere near that type of a demand. And so with that, what tends to happen is the water just doesn't get moving, it doesn't flush itself through, and it gets stagnant and effectively skunky. So with that, the way to address that is to flush the system. It's a lot of water to flush out a 12-inch main that's, mile and a half, 2 miles long. And there's really no use for it other than to drop it in the ditch and eventually into the river. It's not that it's contaminated, it's not that it's dirty, it's still, it's just unpleasant. You would never drink it. You wouldn't bathe in it, you would not use it for your laundry. In the future, very likely as these areas would develop and as the city's water plan shows, they've got infrastructure up there, water towers, that they would have supply in that area. And they would be able to bring the water, instead of the water coming north on Valley View, they could bring the water from up above down the hill and feed Valley View into downtown. And you would certainly have the capacity downtown, in that lower area to keep the water moving through, keep the water fresh, and have a good system, in those regards. When that's going to happen is really hard to say, but it's certainly not anytime soon. So with that, therein really lies the challenge for the water system. Someday down the road, we can all look back at when Bloomington, what they looked like 7,500 years ago. Very, very different than today. 75 or 100 years from now, this area will undoubtedly look very, very different from today. That's kind of the thought. So with that, that's the thought around the water system. The sewer system, yes, they can certainly get urban services out there for the sewer. It sounds like I wasn't aware that they had some connectivity. It's probably a grinder station type of a system, very similar to what the people redevelop around lakes, in order to get something down the line. Very likely not able to hold much of anything, as far as adding more to that existing line. It'd certainly be looked at, but very likely not able to hold a whole lot. They're just not designed for that. Guess the biggest question is, do you have any questions for me?
Anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chair, on that sanitary sewer that services that area right now, you say it's too small. I mean, I don't think these uses are going to be that huge demand for sewer.
I'm not aware of what the design of that system is, but if it is in fact, it was likely sized for just the use that's there. So if it is in fact one of these grinder station type systems, that I suspect it would be, that's what we've seen in other locations like this. It's kind of a 55-gallon drum type of a shaped device that's maybe yay tall, that has a small pump in the bottom and connects to very likely a 2 or maybe a 3-inch pipe that pushes that out.
Okay.
So certainly very different, pressure system, very different than what, a typical urban service system would have. The city's design talks about gravity sewer into a couple of lift stations to get the water down to the treatment ponds.
But the existing sewer could be looked at. We don't know for sure what it can carry.
Yeah, correct.
That could be looked at.
It could certainly be looked at, yep. I have my suspicions, but it's definitely worth looking at.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to make comment at this time? I know that go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to take a couple minutes to just respond to a couple of things that we heard tonight. So, to alleviate maybe some of your concerns about moving too fast, you have a lot of information in front of you, and there's a lot of back and forth today, and it's difficult to hop onto one point and whether it's relevant or not. I think one of the developers kind of summarized it well by saying, what we're asking for and what the township is sponsoring tonight is because it's to re-guide this area. And again, for trying to be thoughtful stewards of the township, we wouldn't have gone through all of this unless we thought that there was a good reason for it. And I see that the city's narrative about this is to try to get everybody here to step back and, hey, can't we just take our foot off the gas and let's reconsider this? I think Mr. Waltman mentioned several times about an OAA, okay? So I'm going to tell you a little bit secret about the OAA. Back in 2017, after the city of Jordan had done an OAA with St. Lawrence Township, Sand Creek Township, again, being faithful stewards of our township, we realized that we surround the city of Jordan on 3 sides, to the north, to the east, and to the south. And so there's no doubt in our mind that we're, in order to be good, collaborators with the city, that we're going to be dealing with each other. We're going to be sleeping with each other in bed a lot. So our goal is to play well in the sandbox, and we've done that. Now, what we did do in 2017 was shortly after they had their orderly annexation agreement done with St. Lawrence, is that Sand Creek put together a draft, and we gave it to the city of Jordan. And the city of Jordan sat on it, and the city of Jordan never looked at it. The city of Jordan, in fact, never even came back to Sand Creek Township and even talked about it. Now, we had addressed this corridor, we had addressed the eastern situation, and we had addressed to the south, And at the time, interestingly enough, they weren't growing to the north, and they still aren't. So the interesting thing is that, yeah, they decided to go through St. Lawrence Township and to make their 32-inch interceptor, sewer interceptor, be the place where they planned their growth. That's south of us. You know, you can talk about, well, we have engineering that we've taken a couple percentage of you know, of daily volume to be able to withstand that. Whatever, you know? I mean, that's not accurate. So the fact of the matter is that when we spoke to the city of Jordan on June 5th, the whole reason for that meeting was because we had a change of plans. Our area up there had evolved, okay? And so the township trying to think about, hey, we need to maintain control here, and we need to keep it rural, and we need to keep it township. But we can do this because we can keep it a rural commercial development and have everybody be as satisfied as we can make them, right? We can touch a little bit of everybody's button. But the thing with the city of Jordan is that we were told that day that for $3.5 million, they can get right up into this area and they can take care of it with sewer and water, right? But we don't need that. We've just proved to you tonight in a couple of ways that it doesn't need to be that way today. I mean, there's methods around that. But the thing is that it's interesting because they had a DRT meeting in 2020 with JMH. Then they had a DRT meeting in 2023, in spring of 2023 with Messenbrink. And their narrative changed a little bit because they got to see that after the township had been well at work for the better part of 6 or 7 years, working on the overpass, working on the safety issues up there. It only made sense to us that, hey, we would continue this economic benefit and all of the safety improvements. Why wouldn't we just extend it to the south? And who should, you know, except for when it's economically opportunistic for the city to see that, hey, you know, let's parachute in on this stuff and let's try to get a hold of this. And that's not what we're here about. I'm not here pointing fingers about this and that. I'm just saying we went to that meeting to tell the city of Jordan why we were there. And we explained that this really makes sense. We can do this together. We can develop this, and you guys can do your thing, and we'll both live in perfect harmony. But instead, we said, well, why don't you join us in an orderly annexation agreement? Well, can I remind you that we did that once already? And where did that go? But you're sure really in a hurry to get there today because they know that we've set the table already, and it's really working out nicely for them. So I'm sorry, but we did attend an orderly annexation meeting with them. But you know what? We didn't say, we were just there to hear them out. And we're certainly going to join them up in a meeting again because we have to, you know, and it's the right thing to do. But the right thing for you guys to do tonight is to please understand that there's, you know, there's ambitions and there's narratives here that are not really going with the direction of the truth. And the truth is that we're just asking you to thoughtfully re-guide this area so that it gives us this opportunity to make it the place that it can be underneath the township's jurisdiction and not the city. I'm concerned that if you wanted to ride horses down a city street, can you? I'm concerned that you're not going to get too much action from the city of Jordan about natural waterways. That has been a huge concern of the township. I mean, we've been talking to these developers about what they can do with the wild areas, and it's important to us. And so we're trying to make sure that we check off everybody's box the best we can. And I don't think that's the city. I think it's the township. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I have one question on the township, and it's a little different subject, but it's road infrastructure.
Yep.
No one's really talked about, part of this area is gravel road. I assume it would be upgraded to bituminous.
That's correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm Emily Gilpin. I sent you an email. I'm kind of shaky, furious right now because
all right.
everybody keeps telling
Thank you
me,
for coming up and talking.
keeps telling me to use my common sense. So I just have a few questions about my common sense. On this picture that you can see here, this is the area in question, and with this one being added to it, you can see that Sand Creek comes all the way through the middle of it, and for some reason they want to, as I do believe Mr. Huber had pointed out, asking about, this is the total area of land, but you can only develop a little bit of it. And I'd just like to point out that all the industry on 169 is to the north of that, and notice how no one before has tried to come down here and to develop there. Why would you go there to develop if you can't use all the land? There's environmental issues up the wazoo that could not just impact Jordan. Sand Creek feeds into the Minnesota River. That impacts Carver County communities and Shakopee. So if worst case scenario, something happens and a contamination, it's not just Jordan that is in trouble here with the drinking water. They were saying the type of businesses, you know, people are, oh, we need these buildings, we need these buildings. There are so many other non-ecological sensitive areas to build in and around Jordan and in Sand Creek Township. I don't know why they're focused on this one where it just doesn't make sense to build there. So they're saying things like landscape companies can be back there. Last time I checked, landscape companies use pesticides. So what happens if there's an accidental dumping or maybe, you know, employees that are just a little lazy? Oh, we can just dump it back there, no one cares. You know, things like that. Like how are the eventual tenants of these buildings? How can we trust them? Who's gonna be financially responsible when someone screws up? Those are my questions. Yeah, I don't understand why people want to build there. It's financially, we're not getting much of it. Yeah, and people always talk about, oh, well, we can build rain gardens and whatnot. Have you seen the rain gardens that people build? It's just like a space this area. They put in some native grasses and that's enough to appease people. And we're talking about an aquifer and a river and wetlands, not let's just put it in a rain garden and call it good. These are things that I believe that you guys need to get a handle on and address before you go shotgunning through this proposal and rezoning stuff. Because financially, it just doesn't make sense to develop there. That's why everybody developed north of that area. You can see a clear divide. And as Peggy had mentioned before, it's this little island of area that they have to shoehorn, you know, round peg, square hole, to like, oh yeah, this is a part of that same park. That is not a part of that industrial park at all. Yeah, so I'd like those questions answered. I'd like a little more heavy hitting on the land management. Because, yeah, I'm all for industry. I'm all for, like, let's get some more, you know, tax base in here. But that's just the dumbest place to build. And there's so much to lose for us, for Scott County, for surrounding communities. And again, I know it sounds like, oh, you know, oh, fire, 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 but these are things you have to think about fourth dimensionally down the road. How is, like, what happens? Like the floodplains, yeah, you can get the picture on here of where it is, but what happens when the real act of God comes and just swallows that entire area? Like, how are we gonna deal with that? Because it will happen. That is a serious floodplain that will do whatever it wants. No matter how high you build your houses, no matter what you put in there, or these, you know, basic safety measures. I just wanted to go back to, they were talking about minimal water usage. Well, these are commercial properties. Do you know how many gallons it takes to charge a sprinkler system? Because I don't think you're gonna let them build without a sprinkler system. So these are just some things I'd like you to think about. I am totally in agreement with Henches here. Let's just, driving by this weekend, they got this in the bag. They got this in the bag. They got everything out there. They're ready to break ground tomorrow. All right, I feel like this is being pushed way too fast. Yeah, anyway. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of flustered. That's just some very concerning things and future worst-case scenarios that you need to be thinking about before we just like, yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else like to make comments this time? I know you wanted to come back up and make another comment.
It is brief. I just was one
A
thing
brief
I
comment,
really
yep.
was not able to say. If septics are any part of this, you cannot have a septic in an area that's been graded. So that diminishes even further the land that is, I think, depicted on the site plans. I don't know that took into account the fact that you cannot put a septic or its alternative site in an area that's been graded.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Is there any other comments? Okay, this time I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Henches, second by? Second. Commissioner Robbins. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion or discussion on the item before us at this time.
Mr. Chair, I was just wondering if we could have our environmental person from the Environmental Health and Waste Program speak a little bit about the septic and the Wetland Act.
Yes.
And
That would be great.
And I'll just say, my experience with the Wetland Act and the feds, they're going to be pretty stiff in this area, I would think, around Sand Creek. Second, it should be mostly granular soils in this area. And I know there's a high water table, but your regulations say you have to at least be, what, 3 or 5 feet above the water table?
Correct. So, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I'm Kate Sodacek, the manager of the Environmental Services Department, and taking down some notes here. I just want to confirm some things that you've heard and reconfirm just what you said. So, it is some of the things you heard, which is true. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and the U of M have done many studies, and they're finding that the septic systems are treating sewage as well as municipal systems, if not better, and they're also finding that the treatment is so sufficient, and then it is also recharging the groundwater. So it's actually turning into a positive for your groundwater quantity and quality. So some of the items about like how we're making sure that we're protecting the environment. So Scott County has a very effective septic system program, also with stormwater. So we have several points along the way where we get an opportunity to review and make sure all of the requirements are being made. We can do our approval and denial. And then some of the other items that were brought up, there are areas of concerns that we're looking for too. High groundwater table. Like you said, granular soils, are we getting the infiltration that we want? We don't want it too fast, right? We want it just a nice steady rate, so we treat that sewage and we're taking care of all of the viruses and bacteria and everything, right? So the state has, these septic designers are trained by the state along with the inspectors, and there's a different features that they can put into these septic systems to make sure that we're addressing fast soils that infiltrate quickly and this high. So they can either make a system larger, they'll add more sand to make a separation. We also have setbacks. Septic systems and wells can't go into floodplains. They have to stay a distance away from a floodplain. So I think I'm very comfortable as the development comes in, we're going to have these checkpoints with them to make sure that they're protecting the environment. And if we have any concern, as we come back to this board, we'll share if we're running into any problems. One of the other things I just also want to touch on is, so after we get done with that, that permit review, many of these businesses will go on to have a solid waste and a hazardous waste license. So it isn't just a one-time approval and then we go away. The Environmental Health Department will be following up and we'll be doing inspections accordingly, looking and making sure waste is being managed properly. So it isn't just a permit and then we're gone. We will continue to follow up. Those are kind of all the notes that I took. If anyone has any other questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Watson.
how would you characterize the septic systems that were installed at the business park, Elko New Market?
Are you talking about the bottling company or the Elko New Market? Oh, I believe that each one of those sites had their own individual septic system, went through a thorough review process, and they're being installed. I think all of the buildings have been built. So the process went well, and they're getting, as these businesses are coming in, again, they're getting their license, and we'll continue to work with these businesses and making sure that they're in compliance out on Fieldstone.
Mr. Chair, I mean, regarding New Market, tougher soils there, it's clay till there versus here we got alluvial sands, which are better to treating soils than the clays, and you have to do a mound system, I would assume. It can be done, it's a tougher site, New Market would be than this site.
Right. Yep, high water table, and that clay is going to be a little bit slower to infiltrate, so they make the systems bigger. And then the reverse might happen here with this location, that impermeates so fast that we make it a big system and we time dose that sewage, so it's getting time to sit and settle and treat before it just percolates through. So it too might be a large system, and it too might be a mound.
There's ways to maybe slow up the soil, put
Yep.
some silty sand or material in there to slow it up a little, because sometimes those sands are very permeable.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if it is a question to you or I would like to know the experience about a couple of years back where there was floods. There was lots of rains and at least my area in Shakopee, it was all flooded everywhere. There were lots of water. So I would like to know the experience of the people located in that particular area at that time.
Do you want it from the environment part or
Well,
people's experience?
From the flood perspective, as well as from the septic facilities that were they overflowing, and what was the experience of the people located over there?
So when this development comes in, we will be given a floodwater elevation, a high floodwater, and we will make sure that the septic systems are out of that. So they shouldn't they shouldn't experience any of that high floodwaters coming through and getting to the new septic systems that are going to be put in.
Mr. Chair, when you look at that, do you look at the 100-year flood of that area or the 500-year flood?
100-year flood.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sain, I'm not sure I answered that question correctly.
I don't, that's why I asked earlier if you are the person, or should this question be directed to the county people, or should a general audience, or the constructor, or, I don't know, I have no idea. But this comes to mind that if you have that experience will tell us a lot about the existing situation, how the experience was there in that flooded conditions.
I can't speak to if any septic system in this area has had that experience. I can tell you, we do have another area where we have septic systems that are in a floodplain. Like they were an older home that had replaced, and the septic system went into the floodplain. And the state has a requirement every time there is a flood, what they will do is they will turn off, they disconnect their drain field from the tank, and then they have to just function on that tank as like it's a holding tank until the floodwater recedes. So septic systems haven't been allowed in the floodplain for a very long time, but if there was a situation where someone's septic system was in the floodplain, and they contacted our office and said, what do? We would tell them your drain field has to be immediately disconnected from your septic tank, and you're just gonna be on a holding tank until the water recedes.
So basically you're saying that some extra measures have to be taken in these situations?
Yes, yep, there's still measures that can be taken if a septic system should be,
So
in the event in floodwaters.
Constructors or builders have to be made aware of these situations.
Yep, the state has requirements for septic systems that happen to be in the floodplain or experience a flood event that wasn't expected.
Thank you very much.
I should add, the homeowners that have had that experience, which is, I can only think of one time, being on a holding tank is, it's challenging. It starts to get to be a financial burden because you have to pump that septic tank frequently. And so it's in their best interest not to put it in a floodplain.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are still,
Well, Mr. Chair, this is discussion. This is certainly a hard issue. I have listened closely, especially to the developers that have said this land started out to be re-guided. This is an motion for an amendment. I'm also quite aware, as I hope all of you are, that there are pages and pages of regulations that go with any development that goes here, from the state on down. And that gives me some confidence. I take what the woman said, what was your name? Emily. It's hard to understand why somebody would want to develop on an island where a lot of the acreage isn't even developable and that it's wetlands and stuff like that. Very hard to understand that. I do get the idea that if it's dry land, somebody, a developer will say we can develop there, but I'm of two minds. The planning commissioner in me says I have to pay some attention to the fact that the area was re-guided and started out that way. And the township, I think, has done a very good job, and not only in proposing the development, but of being very, very conscious of the people that spoke about the environment. I mean, you know, you all live pretty close together. I've always been nervous about this because it is so close to the river, and it's so close to Sand Creek. So I will vote one way or the other, but I'm really of two minds right now. Part of me leans towards saying no, and the other part, the planning commission in me, leans towards saying, I haven't heard anything that would negate the idea of approving the proposal? Yeah, I'll start with that, Mr. Chair. All right.
Thank you. Commissioner Watson, I know you want to weigh in.
Well, we've all got, obviously, we've got concerns with the transportation infrastructure, 169, upgrade to the Valley View Road, municipal sanitary sewer and water, how it's gonna work. When do we have when do the developer wants to start doing site prep? What is the impact that we have a delay? The issue associated with, we have conservation easements issues here. But at the end of the day, what we're really doing is we're giving the Sand Creek Township the responsibility to manage this business development and expect that they will be good stewards when they come back to speak with us again, maybe not in my tenure, but certainly before you folks again, that they will have done their job appropriately and have made wise and judicious decisions. So based upon that, I'm going to have to agree with the township and the county as we move forward here.
Commissioner Henches?
I just have so many concerns. When I look at this piece of land, it's got Sand Creek going through it. We know there's floodplain issues. You've got stormwater management. You've got wetland delineation. And there's a part of me going, well, why build there, for God's sake? There's the list of stuff that you have to deal with after the fact is enormous. It's enormous. And I heard what everybody said, that, well, you start in and then you deal with the issues as they come up. Well, I wouldn't want to build a house that way. I would want to be a lot more comfortable that the house I was building was on a buildable tract of land. And I think if anything blows up here, it's going to blow up big. There's too much water there. I'm really concerned about the water. I would vote no. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Huber?
Well, I would vote for this rezoning for a number of reasons. One, the Federal Wetland Act is going to be very restrictive, so the feds are going to be really hard on what we do by Sand Creek, and the county will be there too. Septic, it can be controlled. I'm a geotechnical engineer, and I know we can deal with the water and not have it contaminated into the subgrade, especially in granular soils. It's like the county mentioned, we might have to slow it up because it might infiltrate too fast. The infrastructure roads will be upgraded. There'll be paved areas and a gravel road, so that infrastructure will be there. It'll be a little bit of a drive up to the north on 173rd, up Jordan, up into Bluff, that new interchange at 169. So from that viewpoint, I think we can control any concerns about flooding, concerns about contamination, and the infrastructure is going to be rebuilt. And I think Sand Creek has done a pretty good job at trying to handle that.
Commissioner Pika?
Yeah, I mostly agree with all you. I know the area very well. I do think there's some developed property that could be built on because there's high and there lows. I don't like the idea of banking up Sand Creek to make it work, because then you get water downstream, or it pushes the Jabses and all that stuff in more jeopardy. So you cannot bank up or whatever. We know that, and I think it's a lot of information here. I just agree with. I don't know why we would pick this site to have this many properties or parcels on it. You know, I think there's room for some of them, parcels that's developable, but probably not.
Commissioner Hussain? I mean, you done, Commissioner Pika?
Yeah, no, that's.
Yeah, I think the applicants have not been able to show any special circumstances to me that warrant the approval of this application. Because this is a special area where lots of ecological thing and environmental things are involved. And I have not seen any of these notes that the neighbors have said who support this. So to me, this no. I don't know.
Well, I'm the only one who hasn't weighed in, so I'll weigh in at this point. I'm very familiar with this property over the years, been there many times. Our charge tonight is to make a recommendation to the county board to recommend this comp plan amendment or not. And that's what our charge is. After hearing all the testimony tonight, after reading all the reports, the information from the City of Jordan, from the township, our applicant, the Sand Creek Township information from their testimony, and to make a decision on this. This is an extremely challenging area, and I think that I see in listening to everyone talk about it, and talk about it in very many different aspects of this going on, whether you're talking about the floodplain, the soils, the proximity between the Minnesota River and Sand Creek Township, or between two of those. It's just a very challenging property here, but our charge comes down to looking at how this is guided under the comprehensive plan, and the logic for that and the reasoning for that, and have things changed. And we've heard from the developers, we've heard from the residents, we've heard from all the interested people here at this point. Have things changed to justify changing that at this time for this property. And that's the question that has to be answered by this board after hearing the testimony on this. And, I think that that there's a lot of different parts of this. And this board, we have heard many, we've been involved in the comp plans over the years. We've heard many different public hearings where we've heard a lot of the factors and we are charged with making this determination and making a recommendation to the county board based upon the information that we have before us. And I can see by all your faces that this is a difficult decision, but that's what we have to do going forward at this point. And I would ask each of you to.
You didn't tell us how you're leaning.
You'll find out when I vote. It's as difficult for me as it is, and I've been in planning for many years, and I think it's incredibly important because these decisions guide how this property is going to look. It's what's going to happen with the property over the years, and we have a responsibility that way. And I think that we all look at that in that way. And I think that that's why we have a comprehensive plan, so people can look at, say, this is how this land's going to be used. Well, this is urban business reserve. That it was URB so before, and has it changed? The factors changed because this very thing was almost before us 3 years ago, and we said no, the traffic's not there. There's a lot of issues that still are unresolved. The township has come back to us and said, well, we resolved this, and that's a significant change. So that's where I'm at with this. And I will entertain a motion, and we will take a vote on this with we'll do a roll call motion when I do call for a motion. Sure. Ready for that?
Chairman, I support this land use amendment and further recommend advancing the request to the county board for preliminary action.
I have a motion by Commissioner Watson. Do I have a second?
I have a second.
Second by Commissioner Huber. At this time, I will call for a vote, a roll call vote.
Commissioner Hussein,
No.
Commissioner Pika,
No.
Commissioner Robbins,
Aye.
Commissioner Huber,
Yes.
Commissioner Von Hoff,
Aye.
Commissioner Henches,
No.
Commissioner Watson.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes, the 4-3 vote. Thank you very much. This time, our next item before the board is the planning manager update, and I'll go to Mr. Davis for that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Since our last meeting, 4 items that you recommended to the board went to final action on October 17th. The county board did approve the preliminary and final plat of Hickory Hills 4th edition. Last week on November 7th, they adopted, or they approved the preliminary and final plat of, they approved the conditional use permit to operate a contractor yard, preliminary and final plat of JL Tice Edition, and a 3-way grading agreement that was in Sand Creek Township. And also, they approved the conditional use permit to operate an equipment office service contractor yard in Newmarket Township. That is all I have for updates here today.
Okay, anything else for the cause at this point? Okay, at this point, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Robbins. Second. Second by Commissioner Pika. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. I know, me too. I know. I was right on that.
I almost did.
We should all go iron ourselves.